and snow game. We are getting near the winter of Valconen. It is only 6 days away from the month of Shadow Chase, which is the first month, if I can put my teeth in, of the long Valconen winter. Last session, unfortunately, we lost Brother Lomas to the deadly tentacles and more of a roper in the caverns on the grey peaks. The rest of the party were able to escape, although not without injury, given that Weimar had to hack his own foot off with a flaming sword to escape, and they managed to make it back to the village of New Zealand, where they holed up for a while, at which point they were joined by an Ice Walker barbarian who had previously been part of a bandit group that they'd sort of made a rough alliance with McCord's bandits, and this barbarian Brock had sort of tired of sort of bandit life, and he came to join the group in New Zealand. The plan for the party, since they'd heard rumours of fantastical Mithril in the mountains to the north, was to head to the north and see what they could find there. So we start off with you guys in New Zealand. Before you've sent Cotton Nickel away, you're going to send him to Eastburn Fort to hire some more men to protect the village. But before he leaves, you're all sat around in the guardhouse, puffing pipes of old Dobie, and he leans forward and he says, well, I can tell you a little bit about the men we've got currently as guards, and you said you wanted to take 2 with you. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about them, and you can take your pick. Before we get into that, though, I should tell you, while you were away adventuring, I've overseen, I hope you don't mind on my own merit, I've overseen the building of a beacon a short distance to the north on a hill. It's a simple affair, a small hut, a wooden fire, etc. And I've got a couple of villagers manning it with orders to light the beacon should they perceive any sort of danger approaching the village. Give us a bit of advance warning, that sort of thing. Now, I know you want me to go to Fort Eastburn and hire these men. I'll also tell you that the village elder, Josiah, has approached me, and he's asked me if I can also find a new priest for the village when I travel to the fort. He seems quite downhearted about the whole affair. I mean, I'm not a religious man myself. He seems quite downhearted about the loss of the friar. But I've told him I'll see what I can do, but I can't promise anything. After all, finding men-at-arms is relatively easy, but finding a priest, well, that's a different matter. Anyway, we didn't come here to talk about that. You wanted to take two of the defenders of the village with you on this expedition you're mounting. He says, well, we've got 5 people you could potentially take with you. He says we've got Annie Williams, nice enough woman, a little bit reticent to talk about her past, and I've noticed that on her forearm she has these strange patterns of shallow white scars, but she doesn't really like talking about it. And then we've got Miss Dixon, Caroline. She seems more of your sort of fame and glory type. She's actually mentioned a few times asking after what you fellows have been up to. Seems to be quite taken with the sort of adventuring life. And she's got a wolf bite on one of her arms, but that doesn't seem to have deterred her at all. And then we've got Clarence Jones. He's a bit more of your sort of, well, and he sort of looks around. Not to beat around the bush, he seems like a bit of a thug to me, but he does what he's told, and he's not caused any problems. A little bit quick to go for the sword, if you ask me, but what can you do? Then we've got the young hothead, Dick Simpson. He's another fellow. I think someone may have done him wrong in the past, but again, he doesn't really talk about it much. We've got Robert Hayes. He seems to be like a cunning fellow. He made several suggestions about how he could improve the defences. He seems to have a good head on his shoulders. And then last, but by no means least, we've got Ulysses Richardson. Now, I'm not sure if, and he sort of looks over at Hop when he says this. So I'm not really sure if you'd want to go for Ulysses. I'm not sure why. I mean, he's a pretty strong-willed fellow. He's pretty handy in a tight spot, but he seems to have this this dislike of, and I don't mean to be offensive, of fey creatures and those of your bloodline, Hop. So I don't know whether you'd want to go for him, but like I say, he's done what he's told when he's been asked. So I mean, we can spare two of them. So if you have any thoughts about which you'd like to take with you,
well, let's leave Ulysses behind.
Okay.
That feels like trouble that I don't need.
Indeed, perhaps tempting fate a little bit too much.
Yes. Caroline Dixon sounds like she has the right kind of attitude.
Caroline, well, yes, I'm sure she'd be most helpful in your endeavours.
Yeah, and then I think maybe Dick Simpson too.
Dick Simpson, like I say, he's a little bit hot-headed, is old Dickie boy, but he's a good lad at heart, you know. Like I say, just sometimes his temper flares a bit, but it's not really caused any trouble so far.
I've been known to flare my own temper, so I think
well, haven't we all? He says. Okay, so I am just going to add these guys on to my sort of party overview. I've moved them into the sort of player party bit. I've not come up with individual graphics for all of the various people because there's loads of them. So
yeah. So Leopold is just, or Captain Leopold is just, he's keeping quiet currently. He's still smarting about the lack of dwarfs, but he's quite impressed by these doughty females that are rocking up. He thinks that's maybe there is some hope for these humans.
Is that the Blue Rinse Brigade that you encountered last?
No, they're over the hill, and the less said about them, the better.
Okay.
Yes, I will. I need to consider what I'm going to do about them. Perhaps I'll turn on the charms and turn them to my cause. Win over their hearts. Perhaps I need to bribe them with some
Werther's original
annual flowers in their borders or something like that, or some chocolates or some cakes.
Who knows? It's not the strangest thing I've heard.
No.
Tell you what, you can tell we've got too many NPCs. It takes me ages to find them on this list.
Perhaps what I might actually do is just spend a little bit of time listening to their tales of old, and they might appreciate that.
Maybe you could chip in a few of your own. I mean,
yes.
If there's anything dwarves like, it's a tale of old.
Yeah, well, it does pain me to be at odds with the ancestors. You know, these old girls, they're virtually ancestors at this point. Not my ancestors, but, you know, they're somebody's ancestors. Or will be. Or
everybody's someone's ancestor.
At some point, we all become ancestors. So I should probably pay them some respect, despite their lack of respect in my direction.
Okay, well, I've managed to find Caroline Dixon. Unfortunately, this massive list it gives you is basically like, here's like everything you've got set up as a character in one huge list, like including monsters and NPCs, and it's like not searchable or anything like that. So you just have to like page down until you find them. And as you can imagine, we've got a lot of NPCs, monsters, stuff like that.
A lot of, yeah. I'm going to have to mute myself because I've got Keith Moon cracking away in the background there, so I don't know if you can hear it, but I can.
Right, okay, so is there anything else you guys want to discuss with Cot and Nickel before you head out?
No, I
Well,
don't think so. I think just again we want them to try and find some dwarves if you can, and some standard men at arms if you can't.
He says, well, like I told you last time, I'll do my best, but I can't make any promises. I have to take what I can get, unfortunately.
No, absolutely. But
Wasn't there talk of sending message like across the waters to the, where there were more dwarfs actually settled? And
He says, well, certainly I can try and send a message on one of the boats going back to Roeline, but I mean, that'll take months to, assuming that there's even any dwarves want to come over, it'll take months. I mean,
it'll take
I can
longer
do
if you
it.
don't start it.
Well, that's true. I suppose that's true.
Maybe I should send like an artifact like this. I've got this frost axe. I wonder if I sent a frost, if I.
He says, well, you've mentioned these frost dwarves, as you call them, and that they're on the Witch Isle. Well, couldn't we ask if any of them are interested? I mean, they're dwarves, aren't they? And they're a good deal nearer than the ones back in Roeline.
What do you mean, recruit them up?
Yes, exactly. I mean, I know it'll take a few days to get there, but it'll take a damn sight less time than sending a message on a boat back to Roeline.
True enough. I'd kind of considered that in their reduced numbers, they were, they had their work cut out for them. But
well, I tell you what. How about I'll send a messenger to the Witch Isle. There's no harm in asking, and I'll put a message on the boat going back to Roeline as well. Then we've got both angles covered.
For sure, that would be most helpful.
That's fine. Well, if there's nothing else, I best start getting myself ready for the journey to the fort. I'll send Caroline and Dick over to join you in your endeavours, and I wish you all luck.
Yes, and a safe journey to you, sir.
And to you. And you also exchange pleasantries, and you leave the hut. As you're sort of getting prepped, ready to leave, you can see that there is a light sort of snow falling. The weather, since we're getting nearer to winter, has started to turn colder. However, as you're all togged up, you're getting ready to leave the village. As you're walking across the village grounds, ready to head out through the palisade that has been erected around it, you see a man comes walking out of one of the buildings. He's just one of the villagers, and he comes out and sort of under his arms he's holding two young children, as in not long been born young children, wrapped up in shawls. And he comes out, he's got tears on his cheeks, he's got a big smile on his face, and he's like, "It's a boy and a girl." And a couple of other villagers are like, "Oh yeah," and they're chatting, at which point they're congratulating. There's a lot of backslapping, etc. You see old Josiah Means, the elder of the village, is white hair, he's got more furs pulled around him against the cold. He walks over and he says, in a loud voice, obviously intending for everyone to hear, he says, "Now I know we've all faced hard times, and I know the loss of our two priests has hit us all greatly, and I know some of you thought that maybe it was a sign from the gods we weren't really supposed to be here, especially with the winter coming on, but if you need any sign that we are supposed to be here, look no further than this. The first two children born to the settlement of New Sealand, born on Valconan soil. Surely this is also a sign that we are meant to be here, and if we all work together and we all look after each other, then we can survive the harsh winters and we can flourish here when the summer comes again." And of course people are sort of nodding. At which point, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, at this news, I'm looking round to see where Harp is, as he seems to kind of keep control of the party funds. So once I locate him, I'm like, Harp. I think we need to rustle up some coins as a gift. we should be the first to congratulate these folk.
Yeah, certainly. How much do you want?
Well, what do you think? I'm not too au fait with these.
So I
human ways.
think, twins is a special occasion, so maybe 25 gold each would be.
That sounds most appropriate. Yes.
Okay, so deduct a total of 50 gold off your party funds. The father, you assume, because he's holding the kids, when you walk over, do you say anything as you walk over and you hand him this princely gift, as far as he's concerned, about 50 gold pieces?
Yeah, so
he's like wide-eyed. He just like can't believe you've just gone up and congratulations. There's a bag of money.
Yeah. So I sort of take it upon myself as Captain Leopold of the Watch. I head across and say to him, "Congratulations! This is a poignant day in the history of our community, and myself and my doughty companions here would like to present you with this gift as a mark of our best wishes for your futures, and
he looks
perhaps you can invest
flabbergasted.
it. Yeah.
And he's tumbling over himself. He's like, "Oh, thank you. This so generous. I can't say thank you enough." And then he seems to pause as though he's sort of thinking to himself a bit, and he says, "It's I was hoping originally that the friar, Leander rest his soul, would do us the honour of naming these two children. But since he is no longer here," and he sort of looks around the assembled party of adventurers, I would be honoured if you would consider naming them.
Well, my advice would be to you, sir, to take. Did you say it was a boy and a girl?
That's correct.
I would suggest that you take your father's name and your wife's mother's name. That would be my advice, so that they can be remembered going forwards.
He says, that is a tremendous idea. After all, unfortunately, they're no longer with us. It would be nice to think that even if in name only, that they were still with us in some part, since they'd gone to be with Leander some years before we left Rowellina. Thank you. I will. And again, and he's sort of tumbling over himself. He's so grateful. And again, thank you for this magnificent gift. I truly don't know how to thank you enough.
I put my hand on his shoulder, say, "You're more than welcome. And if we can be of any assistance in the future, you need only ask."
Thank you. And obviously, after a while, because it's cold, the children start crying, and he makes his excuses, and he heads over to one of the sort of group houses that form the buildings, and you hear like the sort of the sound of the children crying gets muted as like the doors shut on the building, and you hear like some shocked exclamations from inside as he's no doubt gone to his wife and gone like, "This guy's just giving us like 50 gold pieces," and like there's a bit of a sort of like excited discussion, as this is probably more gold than they've ever like seen in their lives or even dreamed of.
Nice.
Okay, so with that dealt with, we start the main adventure. As we said at the start, you're planning to travel north to the Grey Heights, where there is rumoured to be Mithril located in the mountains. You know that the journey is roughly 50 miles. Now you've got more than a couple of horses. You've got a cart. However, due to the snow falling, it's still making it sort of quite slow going, quite travelling. So, given that you're a wilderness man, Harp, and also yourself, Brock, because you've been about a bit, you've been travelling around Valconen. So, between Harp's experience and your local knowledge, you sort of put your heads together, the two of you, and you reckon it's probably going to take you, in the current conditions, maybe about 8 days to get to like the Grey Heights. And assuming you have nothing further to do, you set off. So you should hopefully all be able to see the main map. And I am going to move you for your first day's travel. Given the current conditions, you're able to move about 6 miles a day. Now, on the first day, about halfway, obviously I've just moved you to the end of where you'll be at the end of the first day, but you're travelling by the river, trying to take advantage of the relatively flat terrain there, because it'd be a lot slower if you're going through the woods. So about halfway through the first day, you see this small hillock that Cotton Nickel spoke of, and there's a very crudely sort of made, obviously been put together rapidly, wooden hut on this hillock, and there is basically a large sort of wooden bonfire with a little bit of a tarp to keep the snow off it nearby, which you assume is the beacon. As you're approaching it, you can see a couple of villagers. You recognise them, having seen them in New Zealand, although you're not intimately familiar with them. And as they see you approaching, they sort of wave at you in a friendly manner. One of them's like, "Oh, where are you heading to, fellas?"
We're heading north, looking for treasure.
They're like, "Oh well, we've got a fire going inside. We've got a brew on. If you want to come in and have a bit of a brew, shake the cold off and whatever, you're more than welcome."
What do you reckon, guys? Are we ready for a little break, or do we want to continue?
That sounds like a fine idea to me, but I'm happy to go with whatever you fellas feel is best.
Let us stop for a cup of tea and.
Yeah, it would be well to sort of take them up on this hospitable offer.
Yeah,
there's not going to be a lot of those going forward, so
no, the warmth will do you good.
That's right. Yes.
You head inside, and the two villagers who, over the course of a few minutes conversation, which we won't go into, it's just general, like, "Oh, how are things going in the village?" and "Oh, what are you hoping to find in the map?" and all that sort of stuff. The villagers who you come to know are called Frank and Smith. They've got a little sort of fire set up. They've got a little pot hung over it that they're doing their tea in. They probably cook their food in as well. You're all given a nice warm beverage, which is very welcome, because even the short distance you've travelled, it's obvious the weather is turning bitter. Although you're all togged up at the moment, and it's not like blizzard conditions, so you're all fine. You have a cup of tea. You exchange pleasantries. Is there anything in particular you want to do there, or after you've had a bevy, or are you pushing on?
I've just got.
Push on. Oh,
I've got a quick question for you there, John.
Of course.
I can't remember what Old Dobby or Old Dobie is.
Old Dobie is the finest pipeweed, my friend.
Okay.
Of North Farthing, as we know.
Indeed. But the finest weed in South Falconen.
Okay. Well, I've got 3 lots of that.
Indeed. Now, if you remember last time, we talked about bringing in the optional rules where if you want to, sit down for an hour or, smoke a pipe and, ponder over a problem you've got, you can basically get, a bit of a hint. But obviously that uses up your supplies, and there might be a chance of a random encounter, stuff like that.
Well, I was just thinking, maybe not. I'm going to look to old Harp again. I think these guys are doing a sterling job. Old Leopold's feeling, since, this brush with death and one thing and another, I think he's been reconsidering his values, and he's feeling a bit sort of generous.
Okay.
So maybe a few coins just for these guys doing a sterling job here at the beacon, and
Yeah, if you got to chip them a couple of coins, just cross a couple of gold pieces off your total. They're very grateful again, because they're pretty much farmers, really. They're not military men. They don't see much gold. So
it's going to make a much more of a difference to them than it does to us.
Considering your guys' wealth, a couple of gold pieces is nothing to you guys, but to them it could be everything.
Yeah, I feel
we could be talking about generational wealth here, because they do barter, right?
Yes.
They don't necessarily use coin.
Yeah.
So I was going to give them some of the old Dobie there, but I don't know if I can. Yeah,
can't smoke gold.
Yeah, I can't smoke that gold.
As the old dwarven saying goes.
You can't smoke gold.
Okay, so after exchanging pleasantries, getting a warming drink inside you, you leave the small hut and the beacon, which is marked by the little fire icon on the map, and you continue on your way. As you're about to head down the hill and continue following the river, with your keen elven eyes, Malcolm, just sort of like maybe like a few miles across the river on the other side, you can see what looks to be on the very edge of the forest, sort of here where I'm pinging at the moment. You can see what appears to be a small sort of encampment, it's like a big tent sort of setup just on the very outskirts of the forest.
We see anyone in it?
You can see like a couple of people sort of milling around, but through like the snow and the distance, you can't really make out any details. But you can definitely see like at least a couple of people sort of moving around.
Okay, and are we very far north of the bridge?
Yeah, you're pretty far north. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't recognise this as anything to do with McCord's group, do I?
It doesn't look like the sort of because obviously when they left the fort, sort of pretty sharpish when they were banished, they pretty much had to make do with what supplies they could take. It doesn't look like the sort of like ramshackle tent you'd expect McCord's bandits to be using. It looks like it looks like it's seen some use, but it looks to be like fairly well maintained. It doesn't look like it's just been robbed off the back of a merchant's caravan. So you're like, it's probably, I can't say for definite, but it's probably not McCord's people. Okay.
Is it worth a day to travel back and across the bridge?
All I would say is they're quite close to New Zealand. I don't think that's a risk you'd want to take if that's someone that's got interior motives.
Obviously, if you guys don't want to travel back down and go across the bridge is pretty much level with where New Zealand is for the purposes of this map. If you don't want to travel that, you could always try fording or crossing the river here, but obviously with the weather being so cold, if you get dunked, it's going to potentially cause you issues unless you can get your clothes dried out and stuff like that.
I'm in no rush. I agree with Brock, and I'm inclined to investigate this, but I have no desire to go swimming in the river, I must confess.
No, it's far too cold for that, Lark.
Indeed.
Yeah, let us head back and across the bridge and we can investigate.
Okay, no problems. So it's basically, you've not even gone like your full journey when you see that. So it's probably going to take you like a day. And I'll just move you across to where the camp is. As you head back down to New Zealand, across the bridge, the weather's staying pretty much the same, although obviously like snow has started to build up because it's been sort of snowing constantly. As you get level on the outskirts of the forest, and just beyond you can see the ruins of Castlemaine that some of you have been to previously, and that's where you met Cod and Nickel first of all. As you make your way towards this camp, you can start seeing it in more detail, and you can see what appeared to be 3 people. They're sat around a small campfire. They're smoking pipes, one of whom is an elf, one of whom is a dwarf wearing like fur and chainmails, and the other person appears to be a man who's obviously a religious man. He's wearing like clerical vestments. He's got like symbols of like Leander sort of like sewn into his robes and stuff like that. They're all sitting down sort of like smoking a pipe. As you get a little bit closer, who's taking the lead as you're sort of approaching?
Have we got a face, man? I feel like
I feel like as soon as we knew it was a dwarf, Leo was like sprinting ahead.
Well,
Is that what you're doing, Leopold?
I have to confess I'm quite encouraged by the fact that there's a dwarf in town, but yeah.
Who has got the highest charisma as it goes?
What is this? What is this charisma that you speak of as if it could be so easily quantified by a number that ranges from 1 to 18.
The latest research
3 to
shows
18.
that most individuals place somewhere on a scale from 3 to 18.
Well, that's it. That should tell you a lot about Leopold's charisma. That he thinks you can go down to a 1.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's already given himself a -2.
Look, I've only been playing since 1980. You've got to, cut me some slack, man.
That's it. Okay, so who's going first?
Well, I've probably got the lesser movement rate.
I think
I'm
we'll find
happy to go
Weimar's
first,
got the
Colin,
lesser
unless you
movement.
want to.
Yeah,
I'm happy to go first unless Leo wants to.
I think I'll sort of be hiding. I can imagine Harp sort of striding through the terrain, and Leopold is like scurrying along behind, kind of curious.
I mean, Brock is quite charismatic, but
He's buff.
he's new to the group, so he doesn't feel that he should be taking the lead in anything at this point. He's still trying to earn his
still finding his place.
rights. Yeah.
Quite right. He should know his place. That's accurate.
Yeah, any day now we're expecting Leo to learn his place.
I think it might be a long way.
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah, Harp. You probably appeal to the majority of them folks there, and you got the longest legs, so I reckon.
Okay. So I guess I'll be taking the lead then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so given that you're a man of the wild, you know what to look for when you're moving through the wilds, and obviously you've been in the Whalesong Woods before. You know the sort of thing that lurk in there. You're being a little bit cautious, but you're still moving with relative speed. As you're getting nearer to the camp, you're just about to pass between a couple of trees when you notice that, and if you were moving quickly, you probably wouldn't have seen this, that someone has strung a very thin cord between the trees in a number of sort of heights, and sort of they go over branches, looped over branches, and tied to the end there are a number of metal objects, like forks, knives, old tin cans, stuff like that. As it seems like they've basically set up a crude alarm system in case anyone tries to just romp into their camp.
And how far away from the camp do we think we are?
You may be sort of 70 feet away from the camp, give or take.
So what I think I'll do then is stop and then call out hello to camp. We've come to visit. We mean you no harm.
Okay, as you say that, you hear a very serious sounding voice saying, but be careful, we've strung up alarms between the trees, but if you mean no harm, just step around them and come and share the warmth of our fire. Blessings of Leander on you.
Thank you. And I will step through the alarms and walk up to the fire.
Yep, you all sort of presumably head in and head up to the fire. You can see a dwarf sort of looking a little bit reflective. He's sat there with his pipe. There's a warhammer propped up in front of him, sort of leaning against his leg. He's wearing furs, and you can just see sort of chainmail under it. There's a wooden shield on the ground next to him. The man who addressed you is a solemn looking fellow wearing these long robes with embroidered symbols of Leander on them, and he's you can see they've got a bit further on into the woods, they've got a few horses tied up, and then you can also see there is an elf stood there. He's wearing he has black feathers sewn into his gear, which tells you, Harp, that he's probably a member of the Raven clan. They're a little bit of they're regarded as a little bit of a morbid clan of elves who regard the sort of exodus from Valconan and the sort of split of Rohaleen as signs that this world is sort of basically sliding towards its end.
Okay.
As he sees that you're an elf, this figure walks over, and again in this quite sort of solemn, almost hollow sounding voice, he gives you the old elven handshake and greets you in the name of the Raven clan. And he introduced himself as a Rathak Alabar. And he then switches to common so that the rest of you can understand, and he gestures around and he says, The fellow with the beard there by the fire is Durg in a hard coat. The dwarf just like raises his pipe and gives you an up nod, and he says, "And this is our leader." And he gestures at the cleric and says, "This is Hiram McDaniel." At which point the clerical figure nods, and again he says, "And the blessings of Leander on you all this day."
Indeed.
He says, "Please come and share the warmth of the fire, such as it is, although I don't know how much longer it'll last. The wind seems to be getting up a little."
It does. So I'll sit down somewhere near the elf and introduce us, and then explain that we've come from New Zealand. We are out adventurers looking to forge our way to make New Zealand great, and I guess ask why you're here and what you're looking for or traveling towards.
Hiram, the cleric, again in this quite sort of somber tones, says, "Well, I've been travelling with my companions here for quite some time, and it is my belief that the word of Leander needs to be brought to these heathen shores. And we have travelled across here on a great ship, our company, whom we call the White Blades. We are travelling to the various settlements in so much as we can, preaching the good word of Leander."
Well, Hiram.
Yes.
In New Zealand, are you looking to settle down, or are you on the move? Because
He says, "Well, I am not currently looking to settle down, as you say. There is much work to be done on these heathen shores. There are many people who have let their worship of Leander lapse, travelling to this newly recovered land, and I believe it is the task that Leander has set before me to preach the word as I travel, so that people will not forget that even though we have moved and we have moved back to our old homeland, that Leander is still with us and still smiles down upon us."
Unfortunately, our community has lost their priest of late, and they.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It sounds like. It sounds like you've got other ideas, other aspirations. We'll carry on looking.
Well, I'm sure if the people of your village are good Leander following people, that and he sort of raises his hand up to the sky, I'm sure that he will provide. And as this conversation is going on between Leopold and Hiram, the rest of you are sort of looking around and taking in this adventuring group, the White Blades, and looking around, you can see that they are like tooled up. They're clearly not like, oh, we're like some scrubby like guys who are just setting out on a life of adventure. We've got like a wooden spear and a hand axe between us. They are like prepped.
Do they have any recognizable livery or
Indeed they do,
or symbology?
And if you look at the map, you will see I have updated the symbol, so it no longer shows a tent. It shows a shield which has two white swords crossed over, and then a golden cross of Leander in the centre of it.
So there's some pretty big movers and shakers, are they?
Is that recognisable then to anyone?
I'll tell you what, anyone who wants to see if they recognise them, make me a D6 roll and tell me what you get.
I mean, they're from overseas, though, aren't they?
I've got 1.
Okay.
I got 5.
Okay.
I'm not rolling. I'm not impressed by that celebrity status.
No, if they're overseas, I think there's absolutely no chance of me
That's fair.
knowing of them.
So, Wymore, you vaguely remember hearing about the the White Blades, you're pretty sure you don't know a great deal about them, but you're pretty sure from what you've heard that they come from the kingdom of Tosan, which is like a more sort of like religious ruled empire on Rohaleen. It's basically like the centre of Leander worship on Rohaleen. They're actually recently engaged, like before you left, in a war with Keystone, where you come from, because the reason they gave us like, the avarice of these like merchant princes in Keystone, it's like an affront to Leander, and a lot of people were like, yeah, but if you could take over their like trade routes, that'd be quite handy, wouldn't it? But with the discovery of Valcone, and that sort of put an end to that war, which led to more sort of rumours that perhaps the Tosan theocracy was just looking to like grab some more resources, and maybe now more were available, they didn't see the need to try and like grab Keystone's resources. But you remember hearing like that perhaps you think maybe they perhaps fought in the war, but you don't really know any details. You know that they are supposed to have been around for like quite a while.
So this isn't like a state company; it's a free.
Yeah, it's a free
operation.
company.
Yeah,
and obviously you don't know the details because you're from a different one of the different kingdoms. But you're pretty sure that they're not just like first level adventurers. They've been around for a while.
How many horses are there? Can we see?
3.
Okay.
As you're sort of like taking all this in, and Leopold's finishing up his conversation with Hiram, the dwarf Durgin Harcoat, who's been sort of like gazing into the fire, to give you a bit of an up nod, he's not really said anything else, he's been like chuffing on his pipe, gazing into the fire. He looks over in your direction and in very sort of like clipped tones, he's like, not many of us about.
You got that right. You got that right. I'm Leopold Stavish, and to whom do I have the pleasure of addressing?
Hardcut. Durgin Hardcut.
Durgin Hardcut. Of the Hardcuts, then. Fine family.
You're the first of the Kalner I've seen since getting here.
Yeah, there are a few of us, my friend. There are a few of us. However, I can report that just north of here, there are some old brothers. Mm-hmm. They call themselves like frost dwarves, and they live on this isle, much depleted. I believe them to be the original inhabitants, and I carry this frost axe and another.
He has a glance over. He's like, hold up this frost axe, and he's like, good workmanship.
Yeah. Allow me to give you this as a gift of friendship, and I hand it across to him.
No problems. Take it off your character sheet. He nods, and he sort of like gives it like a couple of experimental swings, just like testing the weight of it. Probably like very gently like runs his thumb along the end of the blade to test it for sharpness, and he's like,
It may, if you perhaps encounter them, you could say that Leopold passed this to you, and perhaps it would set you in good stead.
I will. Okay, so as the conversation is going on, is there anything else you guys want to ask this group?
Well, it'd be nice to know where they've been and what they've figured out.
Okay, they basically tell you that they arrived here. They went first to the fort. They then travelled to the coast. They've been to like a couple of villages along the coast. So they've been to I forget what the name is. The other village. To Deerson. Yeah, they've been to Deerson. They stopped there briefly, and they actually heard about New Seal Land from the people of Deerson, and their plan was to sort of like skirt the edge of the forest, travel to New Seal and preach the word of Leander there, and then continue along the coast, seeing if there's any other villages. But because of the weather, they thought it best to make camp within the bounds of the forest, a bit of tree cover, and then when it comes to the morning, they're going to press on to New Zealand.
I wonder if we should. Wonder if there's anything we could just give them a note in case our guards give them a hard time or anything.
I think if they turn up with a man of religion,
Yeah.
I think the elder of the settlement will probably openly allow them in with open arms.
That's probably true, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They obviously tell you you're welcome to stay and share the fire for the evening if you want, or if you need to move. They're not going to be moving out until first light the next morning, but if you need to move on, that's fine. They understand. They weren't expecting to meet anyone here.
And what time is it, John? Is it getting late?
It's just past noon. It's still fairly early.
Okay. So we could probably move on and get at least back to the beacon by the end of today, could we?
Oh yeah, easy, yeah.
Okay, so then I think we'll move on.
Okay, no problems.
So I don't have to get upset with this cleric who won't stop talking about Leander.
Yeah, and he does go on about Leander a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys, a bit of fun farewell to the White Blades. You head back down to the bridge, trek up to the beacon again. You see that Frank and Smith are still there. They're like, oh, you're welcome to doss down here for the evenings. It's starting to get a bit dark by the time you get there.
Yeah.
They've basically got some beans and stew on the pot.
Yeah, stick the kettle on, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sounds like a good plan.
You guys don't need to spend any rations for the day because they'll quite happily lay out a bit of theirs, so that's grand. And you settle down for the evening. The next morning, you bid farewell to Frank and Smith, and you resume your journey, heading north. As you continue north, about sort of halfway through the day, you pass an area of the river, which I will now indicate, where it seems, although it's slightly covered with snow, it appears as though sort of sand and silt from the river has sort of collected on the far shore of it, sort of in a little ingress. Perhaps the river used to curve a little bit wider, but now there's just a big sandbank, although it's obviously now covered with snow. You continue moving through the day. However, just as you're about to settle down for the evening, obviously you've got your teamsters with you. They're non-combatants. I've not added them to the party, but you've got them with you. They're keeping track of the cart you're all riding on, keeping track of the animals, stuff like that. Or Charlie Lewis and Daniel Cooper. As you're moving along, suddenly the wagon drops down on one side, and it would appear that the wagon has become stuck in the mud and the slush, and it's sank in almost to the top of the right hand wheel on the wagon. Now you can obviously dig it out if you want, but that will take a lot of effort and would result in you gaining a level of exhaustion, and it would take pretty much all of you to do it because it's a heavy old wagon.
Hey, so I'm going to bust out my engineering know-how at this point, John.
Okay.
And I'm going to suggest we rustle up a quick bit of craneage in the form of knocking down a couple of trees and making a little tripod that we can use to apply some mechanical advantage.
Yeah, so I think that's absolutely fine. So whereas it would have normally taken all of you manhandling it out and it would have exhausted you all, with Leopold's engineering knowledge, okay, yeah, it takes you a bit of time to chop down the trees and stuff like that, but they're quite thin, they're pine trees, it's not really a problem. And again, it still takes a little bit of time, but because this sort of improvised winch / crane that Leopold has told you how to set up is taking most of the strain, although you guys feel a bit tired, you're not like thoroughly exhausted, so you don't actually gain any exhaustion levels.
Nice.
There you go. Bit of dwarven ingenuity there for you fellas. Stick that in your textbook.
And Brock will be trying to show his usefulness, putting a bit of extra muscle behind it. You know, he'll try and take the brunt of the heavy lifting sort of thing.
Yeah, and
I feel like he'd have been in there chopping down the old trees there as well.
Yeah, you certainly know without the bulging muscles of Brock Montaigne, it would have taken you a lot longer to chop down the trees. And also because obviously you still have to like pull on the ropes and everything. Although the efforts are lessened, you see Brock sort of like bracing himself and his muscles bulging as he's like pulling these ropes. And you're pretty sure that without his sturdy aid, you'd have got it done, but it would have taken you a lot longer to do. So it's definitely been useful having like this sort of muscly man mountain around to like take some of the brunt of the lifting.
Busting out that 80s Eye of the Tiger soundtrack at that point.
That's it. In fact, you sure as you like listened, you just sort of listen over the wind as he's pulling his rope, you can hear like, and we have a little bit of a montage as the snow whips his hair around, like the gleaming muscles of Brock Montaigne as he's pulling these ropes.
That's it.
Rising up.
Indeed. And you reach the end of the evening, you all make camp, you all settle down, so you all need to eat a ration to like maintain your health. And unfortunately, when you awake the next morning, the weather appears to have worsened. The snow is falling much heavier, and the wind is much more biting. We're getting to the sort of point where it's almost a blizzard now falling. The temperature outside has dropped to perilous levels. You know that like if you weren't togged up, I mean you're still feeling the cold despite all of your winter gear. You know that like if you were a person who like was unprotected by heavy furs and winter gear could easily freeze to death in this weather. That's how cold it is. And it's also going to make it a bit more difficult to like spot things in the distance because of the heavy snow falling down. And it's also, however, on the upside, if you're trying to be stealthy, that's going to be a bit easier. The ground is thickly covered in snow, making it quite difficult to travel through. But, presumably, unless you say otherwise, you push on.
Is there any way of experience allowing us to tell how long this is likely to go on for? How many days, and you know whether this is set in this weather or? You know that
most sort of blizzards like this, because we're not, you know, like they can last for like a long old time when it's like the depths of winter. However, we're still just heading into winter now. So you think maybe a day or two, maybe 3 days if you're unlucky, with your like local knowledge of Valconan and the weather patterns.
Okay, just bear that in mind if it gets almost unbearable, whether there may be or.
Yeah, let's push on the first day and see how far we get, and then we can decide.
Okay. So, you guys do indeed push on. And with the aid of Brock's local knowledge and your sort of skills as a woodsman, Harp, you do make reasonably good time. And because you're near the river, it's not like you're moving through snowy woodlands or anything like that. So, it takes you maybe have to travel a little bit later into the evening, but you do manage to make your sort of 6 miles for the day.
John, we must be quite close to our old mate, the old fella in the tent. I can't think what his name was.
You left him in New Zealand, didn't you?
Yeah, he's in New Zealand.
Is he? Did we take him back there?
Yeah, you took him back.
Yeah.
Oh crap!
However,
okay. That was the right thing to do.
quite. However, as you're getting near to the end of the day, though, you do remember that as you're sort of looking around, you know that sort of just to the east, sort of around about here, where I'm sort of going to ping shortly, which hopefully will come up. There we go. You do know that that's where you, a while ago, you found the sort of like the healing herbs. You remember the friar sort of like finding some healing herbs there. You also know that off to the west, as you can see this as you're moving along, sort of on the bounds of a hill, there is what appears to be a set of ruins, like maybe of a cottage or something like that.
Yeah. It might pay us to try and explore that on the way by.
It is on the other side of the river.
Yeah, that river's a bummer, isn't it?
Yeah. I think we should leave it for now. In this blizzard, we don't want to get wet.
Yeah, you might be right. You might be right, Mr. Harp.
Okay. No
Have we
problems.
come across anywhere where the river might actually have a natural ford where it gets like ankle deep?
Not as yet, no.
Okay. I guess we'd probably be looking out for something like that we would mark on our map to know how we can get.
No problem at all. Okay, so you make camp in the bounds of some trees. The night passes fairly uneventfully. You all need to eat a ration again, obviously because a day has passed. The next morning, the weather conditions are relatively unchanged. Everything appears much as it was before, except the snow is now deeper. The wind still whistles through the nearby trees, although you've got a little bit of shelter thanks to them. The snow is piling up high outside. The temperature is still perilously low. As you're sort of getting ready to set up, you're packing up your camp and stuff like that. Suddenly, and it's very far distant to the east, I mean, we're talking miles and miles away, you hear a very faint sound that sounds a bit like this. But it appears to be coming from very far distant.
Let us continue north. I feel like the owner of that voice is not somebody we want to meet today.
No, I'm picturing a large bear-like creature.
Okay.
Or what about our friend the Cyclops? Perhaps he's wandered out of his valley and...
Is that how they sound like?
I don't know.
Well,
I think it was sleeping last time.
luckily for you guys, you happen to have a native of Valconan with you. Now, Brock, you recognise this noise. You recognise it as the roar of a great frostworm.
Frostworm?
Indeed.
Okay.
You know that these large draconic creatures, in the inverse of most animals, they slumber deeply during the warmer months, waking only when the cold weather grips Valconan. And indeed, just off to the east, sort of in the mountains and the icy plateaus, you can just about make out a small, but it must be quite big because you can see it at this distance, speck in the sky, like seemingly like circling one of the larger mountains, partly shrouded by mist.
Quick, let's deploy some thumpers and head to the stony ground. I'll radio in some foxes and we can be airlifted ASAP.
And I will tell you that's worm with WYRM.
Oh, okay, then that doesn't apply. Cancel what I said.
Cancel the thumpers.
The frost must flow.
Indeed. He who controls the frost.
So, in experience, then, are these things likely to attack like human settlements, or they go after animals? And
You know, they will attack human settlements. They pretty much attack anything they regard as food, which to them is like anything smaller than them, which is most things. A lot of your people, because you like live on the ice floes and you're fairly spread out, you don't really have like big cities or anything like that. You tend to sort of like, you're normally all right, but there have been incidents of like small settlements of your people like being picked off by this sort of creature, and it's regarded almost as like an omen of doom by your people.
it's that big, is it?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can hear it from miles away. That's not a good sign, is it?
Yeah. And the fact, even though it's only a small
fancy.
speck, you can see it from miles away.
And how far away is it, John? Is it on the glacier, or is it?
Oh, let me get my measuring stick out. And I'll tell you
wonder
exactly
if,
how far away it is. Obviously now I've just got to wait for my computer to allow me to zoom.
How do these things zero in on creatures? Is there a way we could mask our presence, Mr. Brock?
As far as you're aware, Brock, they pretty much go by like sight. So like that's why they tend to go for like larger settlements and buildings, because like they can see them from high up. Whereas because your people are scattered and they've only got like small huts and stuff like that, a lot of the time you guys escape their notice.
So perhaps we could dig a snow hole and dig in.
Right. With your keen elven eyes, Hop, you estimate it must be at least 50 miles away.
Okay, right, Jesus Christ.
Bloody hell. And what sort of
I think
distance would you expect it to cover? You know, in the day.
You know there's rumours of it like moving as fast as the winter winds, but there's no sort of ice walkers who've like exactly measured how far it moves.
No.
Because they're basically, as far as your sort of like legends go, obviously it's couched in legend and superstition. As far as your people are concerned, they're like, by the time you've heard it and you've seen it, you're probably
It's too
already
late.
dead.
Yeah.
Well, let us head north and we can keep an eye on it.
Okay.
Yeah,
No
I mean,
problems.
that's a long way away for
Yeah.
little specks like us at the moment.
Yeah, but if it heads at the speed of the winter wind, you know, that's going to be here pretty quick.
Yeah,
You
but
know, it's not like us mugs slogging along in the snow. This thing's like rattling along there.
Yeah, but we can
Like-
keep an eye on it. If it's starting to get bigger, we'll know it's getting closer and we can scatter.
Yeah, Mr. Hart. With respect, it's not me keeping an eye on this thing. It's it keeping an eye on my dwarven self. Is what's concerning me.
I feel you're probably the safest amongst us as I look down at your vertically
What are you
challenged
trying to
self.
say? What are you trying to say? Because I'm probably the one that can dig myself a hole the quickest and secrete myself within the snowy surrounds. That's
Well, your
what you're
hole
trying
would
to say.
certainly be smaller than anyone else's.
Yeah. I
Well, I can
it's-
think of a hole that I'm going to shove my fist in shortly.
I don't think its eyesight is quite as good as our elven friend here.
And if he is, we can just feed him the dwarf. It'll be fine.
We'll see how fine that goes.
Yeah, if it comes to that, unfortunately, it would have all of us as a
Well, it's your funeral. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. So with much discussion, you guys continue your journey northwards. During the day, you start passing through a range of hills that you've been through previously, the Ruin Hills, and you can see that sort of like a couple of miles to like the sort of like northeast, so sort of like around about here-ish. The sort of hills are if it'll ping it. The hills are sort of like fairly heavily forested there. And you know that sort of to the... you sort of pass a hill cave just to your west. And you know that this is the cave where you previously encountered those strange dogmen with the sort of bony tails. And you know that beyond that, half a dozen miles further to the west, on the other hill, are the ruins of the Temple of the Sun that you visited previously. The weather...
That's the place with the beetles, yeah?
Indeed.
Yeah.
The weather has started to subside a little. There's still snow falling, but it's no longer a blizzard. Much as Brock predicted, the blizzard seems to have spent most of its fury, and the snowfall slows slightly as you move. You all make a camp for the evening on top of a small hillock, so you've got a good range of movement around you. The night passes fairly uneventfully. Again, you'll need to eat a ration.
At the end of the day, John, what's the update from the worm? Sort of sound wise, is it got any closer or?
Well, I think now's probably a good time to find out, to be honest. So, what I'm going to ask you to do, Brock, is can you please roll me a d6 and let me know what you get?
A 6.
A 6. Okay. So, as you're sort of on the lookout for this thing, because you've heard its loud roar, and obviously you're, especially given your people's sort of history with it, you're wary of it. I think it's fairly safe to say.
Mm-hmm.
You do spot what appears to be the shadow of a large creature flying out of the mountains to the east and moving further inland. And you should be able to see it on the map.
Yeah.
Now, bear in mind, it's still like miles and miles away from you guys. I mean, we're talking like... it's at least like 15 plus miles away from you guys. But it's big. It's very big. And it's this large, sort of bluey, white, draconic looking creature, which as it flies, you can hear the distant like of its wings as it occasionally flaps them, but most of the time it is fairly silent as it glides on the cold air away from the glaciers. As you're watching sort of later on in the day, just as you guys are sort of settling into your camp, you see the creature appears to sort of fold its wings, and it dips down below the tree line into the hills, and as you watch, you see it emerge back, climbing up into the sky with great flaps of its membranous wings, and clutched in its rear sort of claws is one of the giant sheep that you encountered in the forest previously, some of you. And it sort of swoops up into the air and disappears into the clouds, carrying this giant sheep with it.
Okay. Were those sheep horse size?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were massive. They were like the Cyclops' giant sheep.
Yeah.
And indeed, against the sort of white of the background as it climbs up, you can see that this sheep has like the red splotch mark that you saw previously.
Okay. And what time is it now? Have we...
You're basically just camping down for the evening.
Okay.
As we said, you've already taken your rations off, so you don't need to worry about that again. The next morning, you wake up. The snow is still falling, but throughout the day, it started to turn to rain. And as the day goes on, you hear what appears to be the dull rumble of thunder in the distance, and you see like flickering flashes of lightning.
I was just thinking that worm, flying worm thing.
Yep.
You know, that could get down to New Zealand, couldn't it?
Well, speed it's going. Yeah.
We might have to think about some potential defensive measures against such threats.
Yes, definitely.
What's our sage up to nowadays? What have we got him on in a minute?
Well, when you last set him a task, it was you sort of interrupted him looking for treasure rumours, and you set him the task of finding out more about this curse that Malcolm's apparently labouring under, this weird sort of skin, uber acne that he seems to have, and whether the sort of skull ring that he found had anything to do with it.
Right. I wonder if he's a bit of a Leonardo da Vinci type of guy that could turn his hand to devising military defences as well as arcane whatever, you know. Wonder if he can
In a giant crossbow.
yeah, you know, like a sort of, yeah. Wonder
And as you're sort of pondering this, like, you know, packing up your camp, getting ready to like move, sort of debating whether to go back, whether to carry on, you hear the dim sound, like the slightly distant sound of horses' hooves moving through the snow. And as you look in the direction of the sound, you see what appears to be one of the villagers from New Zealand riding on a horse. He's got like a couple of coats on pulled around himself, and he's like galloping this horse. As he sort of sees you all, he sort of like waves his hand to attract your attention, and then he starts like galloping the horse towards you.
oh, right.
As he draws level with your partially packed up camp, he pretty much almost falls off his horse. You can tell he's probably been like riding through the blizzard. Like,
Yeah, I'll
lips are
rush
chapped,
over
he's
to
cold.
Yeah, I'll rush over to try and aid him there.
You help him up, and he's like, oh, thank you. His lips are chapped. There's like frost in his beard. He's like, oh, thank you. I wasn't sure I'd be able to catch you. Quelac sent me.
Whatever is the matter? You seem in a fair old state there, my friend.
He says, yes, Quelac sent me north with a message for, and he looks around you and then he points at Harp and he's, a message for you.
What did he say?
He says, wait a moment, he made me memorise it. He said to tell you that he doesn't think your curse, and he said he did that when he said curse. He doesn't think your curse is a magical effect, more a like to a disease or a skin condition that has been inflicted on you. He says, from what he can work out, though, the ring that you asked about may have some healing powers to it. That although they aren't connected, if you were to wear the ring, it may actually help with your condition.
Okay. And did he give you the ring to bring to me?
Yes. At which point, maybe a D6 roll. Anything but one you find, he's still got it.
Oh, okay. 3.
I had a terrible feeling about that.
He spends like 5 minutes sort of going like this, and then he doesn't seem to be able to find it. Then he like pulls off his boot, and there's like a fairly pungent aroma wafts into the air. He's like obviously not changed his clothes for a while, and he reaches down, and on one of his like slightly manky toes, he's like put this skull ring on his like toe so he didn't lose it. He pulls it off, and he hands you over this now like very cheesy smelling ring. And he goes, there you go, put it on my foot, keep it safe so I didn't lose it. And he like holds it out to you. Yeah,
very good. So I'll just take it.
Yeah, cheese.
In my gloved hands.
Yeah, it's ripe.
Cheers for that.
And he starts like reciting like because Quelax like told him a little about this ring, and he starts sort of reciting, like he pauses every now and again. He's obviously like struggling to like remember some of what he was told, or like he doesn't really sort of understand. He's just repeating it by rote. But I'm going to tell you that the ring you have is a ring of regeneration. If you are wearing this ring, and I'm going to go into game mechanics a bit just to like speed this up. If you're wearing this ring, you will regain 1 hit point per round. It can also technically, which may be of interest to you guys, it can also regrow severed limbs, although that will take some time. It can't regenerate fire or acid damage, and if you're reduced to 0 or less hit points, i.e. your brown bread, it ceases to function.
Okay.
Hold on, it can't regenerate fire or acid damage.
Indeed.
It'd be a shame if you had a fire sword.
Yeah, that is. Oh dear.
But he says, well, I think that's everything he told me. If there's nothing else, I'm gonna head back for New Zealand. I want to get back there in case another of those storms comes in. And he sort of like looks a little bit sort of apprehensively at like the lightning crackling around the dark, pendulous clouds in the distance.
Okay, so before you go, can you give Quirak a message for us?
Yes, of course. What do you want me to? What do you want me to tell him?
Tell him that we have seen a frost worm, that they are very large, and that we feel like his next priority should be some form of defensive mechanism against creatures, very large flying creatures.
He repeats back to you a couple of times what you said, sort of, and he's like, right, okay, so frostworm, and he's obviously trying to remember it. And after like a few minutes, he's like, right, yeah, I think I've got it. He repeats it back to you one last time, and you're like, yeah, that's what we said. And he's like, right, well, if there's nothing else, and he starts sort of like climbing back onto his horse.
I'm going to take a look at him and his horse and making an assessment whether he should be travelling straight away or not.
He looks a bit rough, but like as long as there's not another blizzard, you think he'll probably be all right.
And the horse as well?
The horse, similar sort of state. I mean, obviously he's been like, because he knows he's reliant on the horse to get here and back, he's obviously been like neglecting himself a bit to like take care of the horse.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just making sure that he knows what he's doing as regards to the weather.
Yeah. You give him a look over, you think he'll be all right.
Okay. I'll give him a bit of advice on, stay close to the trees if the winds get up and stuff like that.
You've discharged your duty of care.
Indeed.
That's right.
So, do you guys push onwards?
I feel like he should have rested myself, but there you go. He obviously knows what he's doing. He's a hardy messenger.
Yeah. So I will put on the ring of regeneration, see if I can cure this disease, and then I think we should push on.
Okay,
Yes.
so it doesn't like insta cure it, but as you sort of put it on, you do start feeling. Because obviously it itches like mad. Because like I say, it's like uber acne effectively. As you put it on, you do notice like the itching is like lessened to a more comfortable level.
Okay.
And I would tell you now that when you awake next morning, your acne will be gone, so you can remove the penalty for that now.
Okay, perfect.
Because it's just like a minor skin condition, so it can cure that like rapid. Obviously, like broken bones and stuff like that, it's a bit longer.
Yeah.
Perhaps we should get Weimar to try it on his leg.
Well, let me cure my acne first, and then we can give it to Weimar.
Well, in the morning you'll be better.
Okay, so you guys push onwards, travelling another 6 miles northwards. You're just starting to enter.
I was just thinking, because we want Harp to look his best. Never mind Weimar hobbling around on his.
My penalty is far worse, to be fair.
Okay, so you have just started entering the southern sort of part of the Grey Heights. The land starts sloping upwards as it becomes first hilly, and then as you continue on it starts becoming mountainous. The terrain is a lot more rocky here, and there are thick snow drifts piled up around. The rain is still coming down quite heavily, although the lightning seems to have spent itself, and it is now just an absolutely miserable or wet experience as you trudge on. Luckily, you've got like a tarp over the wagon, so you guys are pretty protected from it, but you can hear the sound of the rain battering down on this tarp as you continue towards the north. As you enter the Grey Heights, you're sort of looking around. At the end of the day, you're looking around for a place to camp, and you notice a few sort of odd, like browny, sort of grey, like streaks on the snow, sort of in patches as you're sort of heading through this area.
And if we investigate them, what do we find?
You head over to them, Hop, and you have a look at them, and you're pretty sure like what you're seeing streaked on the snow is bat guano.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
And judging
like
by
lots of little bats, or
it's difficult to tell. I mean, there's a lot of guano, but judging from the streaks, it looks as though like whatever left this dung was sort of like heading to the sort of like the northeast.
Okay.
Perhaps it came from like the forested hills over to the northeast. You're not sure.
Okay.
Guano.
Indeed.
Just trying to think if there's any sort of like any useful purpose for that, but
Well, I will tell you that you would know that like when bat guano is dried, I mean obviously this is like damp because it's in the snow.
Yeah.
But when it's dried, it's actually really useful as like kindling, because
Right.
like once it's dried, it like lights very easily with like a flint and steel.
pretty good on your for agricultural purposes as well.
Yeah, exactly. As a fertilizer, I mean, depending on what the bats have been eating, but generally it's quite good as a fertilizer. Okay, so we're getting to the end of the day. Obviously, you pick a less dung splattered like place to set up camp. You will all need
Indeed,
to
yes.
you'll all need to eat another ration as another day has passed.
Yeah.
And you all sit down and have a bit of a smoke, and you all take your various watches during the course of the evening.
I also want to consider the next day's journey through the mountains with regards to the cart, and trying to think of a route that will be best suited for what we're trying to do.
Make me a D6 roll, bro.
A 5.
Yeah, you're pretty sure that you can. There's numerous sort of like passes and sort of like trails through the mountains. You're quite familiar with them. You're pretty sure you can make good time moving through the mountains thanks to your knowledge of them.
Okay.
Whereas that if you were just trying to, obviously we're moving in a straight line on the map, but if you were literally moving in a straight line, like it'd take you ages. But you're able, as you sort of start moving again and you head off in the morning, Brock is able to like direct you through like slightly less impassable areas, saving you a good deal of time, although the going's still quite slow. And the next morning, as you move again, travelling deeper into the Grey Heights, again you pass numerous areas that are speckled with this bat dung. And those of you who knew him, that about 6 miles to the east, just on the edge of the forested hills, lies the empty grave of John Cameron, one of your previous companions.
Are they 1 mile hexes, them little ones, John? Are they?
They are 1.2 mile hexes.
1.2. So the next size up is a 6 mile hex.
That's correct, yeah.
And then you go to the 18.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Okay, so as you guys are sort of travelling through the Grey Heights, making good time thanks to the expertise of Brock Montaigne, is there anything you guys particularly want to do as you're travelling? Or are you just like head down, eyes on the prize?
Certainly keeping an eye out for any sort of signs of any flying creatures, bats or worms or anything else that would catch us off guard in the bad weather.
Okay. No
I'll just spare a thought for me old young and somewhat impetuous companion who fell at at the Battle of the Beatles.
Indeed.
I tried to tell him not to rush in, but
Yeah, because Leopold's well known for his cautious nature.
there's one thing rushing in when you're a grizzled dwarf, but when you're but a youngster, you need to be careful. Still, he paid the ultimate price, unfortunately, and he was snuffed out in his prime.
Very true, very true. Okay, so you make camp for the evening. Luckily, thanks to Brock and, again, Harp sort of putting their heads together, because his local knowledge and your sort of general wilderness knowledge complement each other very well, you're able to find like a sort of sheltered like crag that you can camp under. You check it out for animals, make sure there's nothing dangerous, but it provides you a good deal of shelter from the winds. And you settle down for the evening, obviously all taking your various watches, etc.
I've got a couple of nicknames for you fellas. I'm going to call Brock Lewis and Harp Clark.
Okay. Now, as you're sort of settling down for the evening, what's Weimar making of this journey thus far?
Probably having a hell of a time going in the ever-increasing amount of snow, really.
Indeed, to be honest, you're glad that like you guys can mostly sit on a cart and sort of rumble through it, because you like, especially with your wooden leg, if you were trying to like foot slog it through it, it'd be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, I was actually thinking like, what would be a way that we could have access to make it somehow not as terrible? And I was thinking maybe we have like a pelt of fur that he's just wrapped around the peg just to make it bulkier, so that it's not just a fucking pin that is pushing into the snow. Give it a little bit of bulk or something. But yeah, it's a lot of like moping around, I guess. Feeling like useless now, in a way, because of the weather conditions more than anything else, really. Because otherwise he's fine, but the weather is going to be a big problem, I think, as we go into the deep winter for him. So he's having a period of adjustment here.
Indeed, and it's a fairly, obviously you've got a bit of shelter when you make camp, but it's a fairly miserable experience for all of you, because you've been travelling through snow for a number of days, so like the wet started to like soak into like your furs and stuff like that, and it's been hammering it down with rain for the past couple of days. So you're all stuck, although it's not sort of like, you're not cold to like the perilous points, you've got multiple layers and stuff like that. And obviously when you set up a camp for the evening and you get a fire going, you dry your sort of outer layers as best as you can, but it's still sort of a fairly wet and miserable slog. But as you sort of settle down for the evening, I'm going to ask Weimar, can you please roll me a d6? In fact, no, it'll be a d7, so you'll have to type that in, I'm afraid.
The other thing is I will address Mr. Harp as to whether we should try Weimar out with this ring of regeneration.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, yep, so obviously you've got this ring of regeneration. I won't worry about adding it to your character sheet now, Weimar, but you're given this little sort of silver ring with like a little skull on it, which you've been told by the messenger from Quaylak is apparently a ring that can allow you to regenerate even grievous wounds given enough time. Although you have been told that it can't regenerate fire or acid damage. So, as you all settle down for the evening, you all take your various watches, you drift off to sleep. You'll all need to eat another ration. As you've all sort of drifted off to sleep, Leopold, in the middle of the night, you're woken up by someone like nudging you.
Okay. I roll over. Who's nudging me?
You sort of crack open one eye, and as you sort of peer around, you can see what appears to be Gordon Sinclair, your retainer, who's been accompanying you, and you know, like, it must be his watch because he's like wearing all his kit. He's like out and about, and he's like, Leopold.
What?
He's like, shh. He's like, I saw something moving, only very briefly, against the night sky. Something big.
How big?
He's like, that big? Maybe.
Well, that ain't that big, is it? That's like about the size of a pumpkin.
He says, yeah, well, if I saw a pumpkin flying as well, I'd wake you up.
Fair enough.
And as he's saying that, in the distance, you hear a faint sound. And briefly against the moonlight and the clouds rolling across the sky, you see what appear to be several large shapes, and you hear the flapping of membranous wings.
It's our bat friends.
And as you sort of see one silhouetted against the moon, these aren't normal bats, they're considerably bigger.
Yeah. I'll boot up whoever's next to me. Probably Harp. Give him a dig.
Okay, yes, a hop, you'll wake up by that Leopold like digging his elbow into you. And you feel like a sharp stabbing pain in your side. What, a sharp stavish pain in your side as he as that Leopold like jabs you with his elbow.
We've got company, Harp.
Okay. So I'll
Look
jump up and
lively.
grab my bow.
And whilst he's like arming up, and I point in the direction, giving something to look for, rouse up
Okay,
the rest of our number.
now like both of you are awake and you can sort of like compare notes effectively, because obviously Leopold and Harp, you're the ones with the night vision.
Yeah.
So like having like a quick count, you would estimate there's maybe 9 or 10 of these like creatures sort of like flocking around, for want of a better term.
Okay, what do we know about these things? Do we know about echolocation and stuff like that?
Probably not. No. You would probably know that they have extremely sensitive hearing. Mm-hmm. They will eat meat as easily as they eat fruit and vegetation. From previous experience that a lot of them were scared off by like Weimar discharging his firearm because they're sensitive to sound. They're not exactly like raging berserkers. They're animals. They can be scared off, but they have been known to attack people.
Of course, it was Harp who ran into them, wasn't it?
Yeah. How far away from us are they?
Not very far, and they seem to be getting closer. Perhaps drawn by like your campfire.
Okay.
Which obviously your retainer has been sort of tending as the evening's gone on.
Well, I think Weimar's our best man for this job, with his blunderbuss of doom or whatever that is. That's fire stick that he brandishes, the boomstick.
So distance-wise, what are we talking about?
You're talking maybe 60 feet.
I'm not sure if it's mentioned anywhere how close they would have to be for I guess, people who can hear it.
Yes, basically, yeah.
So that is quite a large area of effect there.
Yeah, particularly at the minute because you're like elevated and you're in these like, echoey mountains. So.
Yeah. So if I can have a sort of understanding of the general direction to cover the most, I'll set about firing them.
Okay, now are you specifically firing at one of them, or are you just like trying to scare them?
Well, I guess I'll try. I'll give it a good old keystone try. While I'm firing it, I guess.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. So make an attack roll with your firearm.
Here goes. Shit, I don't have the range rules here at hand, but let's see what this is. That's it doesn't matter because that was bad.
Okay, so you fire it, but since you don't have night vision and they're dark sort of black brown creatures against a black sky, you pretty much just like point in the vague direction of the sound, and
Yep.
fire it. However, that is enough to force them to make a morale check because they've heard it and they're susceptible to sound.
They don't have. Fuck. They don't have black powder technology, so.
No, they don't. They most certainly
Surprisingly,
don't.
they
That'd be
don't.
scary. A giant bat with like a blunderbuss strapped to each wing.
Oh yeah. No. Underground. Quick.
Okay, so you fire your firearm, but unlike previously, it doesn't appear to distract them. It gives them a sound to like home in on, and these 9 giant bats swoop down. However, luckily, because you guys said you were basically getting everyone up and you were getting everyone ready, like you're pretty much ready for them when you come in, and they're swooping in. So you guys will get to act first. So I'm just going to go through my list. I'm not going to roll initiative or any of that tomfoolery. So Brock, you are awake. You've all been roughly told what's going on. Because Leopold was going around like waking you up while Mom was getting his gun ready. You've seen these 9 shapes sort of like dive bombing in. You can hear this chittering and this maddening flapping of membranous wings. What do you do?
Are they going to be on us sort of imminently?
Yeah, they're literally like diving in to like come at you. Effectively, they're charging. Normally, if you weren't ready, they would have got to attack all of you straight away. But because you guys knew they were coming, you're sort of ready to receive them. So if people want, they can attack them in hand-to-hand combat.
Have we got any sort of defensive position where we can limit how many there are, or is it fairly open where we are now?
Well, you did specifically find, thanks to you and Harp, you found this sort of like crag where you were sort of sheltered. So I'm going to say, if you want to take cover, you can all add a +2 to your armor class. Effectively, during this combat, you can like, hide behind like the rocks and stuff like that.
Okay, but we'd still be able to attack from that position to cover? Or?
Yes, you would be able to. You just like pop out, attack, and then duck back down.
Okay, well, I'm going to basically, as soon as they get into a position where I can take advantage of the cover and still make a attack, I shall do so.
Yep, not a problem. Make your attack roll.
Okay. Let's get the old... I shall give it large with my 2-handed sword.
Nice. So from behind the rock stands up this oiled, muscled, towering specimen of a man with like a pulls this double-bladed sword off his back and swings it. And luckily, unluckily for you, their AC is 13.
Oof.
So you swing at one of these giant bats. You've got it dead to rights. Then at the last moment, it sort of banks sharply to one side, and your blade swishes through the air.
I should have used your inspiration there.
Curse at its agility.
Okay, now, which one of you would like to roll for Caroline Dixon? Because she's there as well.
I'll do that.
Okay, no problem. So if you go to, you should be able to bring up the character sheet in the player party bit.
Oh, Carolina. Go on, go. Give us some.
Shall load, load up Dickie then.
Oh, look at that.
Okay, so as we said, Caroline is like eager to get into that adventuring lifestyle, and she obviously wants to like prove, like she can be a good adventurer, but she gets a little bit overly enthusiastic.
Yeah,
and
classic.
She basically leaps out from cover, hoping to like do the dramatic like hero attack, swinging it. She's got like a wooden shield and a hand axe. She swings the shield and the hand axe towards this bat, like covering herself and swinging the axe, but this bat sort of just like banks away a little bit, and a swing, rather like Brock, her swing goes through midair. Then she suddenly looks around, realizing that she's no longer in cover.
Classic rookie mistake there, the impetuous rookie mistake.
Indeed.
I've seen it so many times before.
Okay, who would like to roll for Dickie Simpson?
I've got his character sheet here if you want me to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go for it. Likewise, he's got a hand axe and a shield.
You can't do any worse than Carolina.
No, but not much better either.
Not much better either.
Okay, so he swings his axe as well, but he's a little bit more, he's less out to impress you guys than and Caroline is. So he sort of swings his axe, realizes like, oh, I've not got the reach to get this like bat, and he quickly ducks back down behind the rocks. So he's still got cover at least, and he's put his like shield up above his head to like cover himself.
It's like when you trip in the street and pretend you're just like breaking into a jog.
Going forward, we'll have Hop make the rolls for Caroline, and Brock make the rolls for Dick Simpson. So when I call out the names, you guys just roll or do what you will with them. Okay, so who's going to roll for Gordon Sinclair, your retainer, your actual retainer?
Oh,
I'm happy to again.
Oh, well, whatever.
Okay, that's absolutely fine.
Oh, that shit.
Getting better.
14 for 4 points of damage.
Okay, so being a little bit more practiced and a bit more used to being in dangerous situations than your two sort of men-at-arms hirelings, and obviously having seen someone like, without meaning to like go into it, the shit that you guys get into, he like doesn't step out of cover at all. He literally like pops out a little bit, pulls his longbow back, there's the twang of the bowstring, and an arrow zooms through the air, and it strikes one of these bats that lets out this high-pitched chittering noise. You see the arrow like punch through its membranous wing. It hasn't killed the creature, but he's definitely damaged it.
Okay.
There you go. That's how you do it.
Okay, Leopold, show us how
Good
it's done.
shot, Gordon. Mr. Sinclair, good job. And I will break out Misery's End and crack one of these creatures with it.
Okay,
Douche.
make your attack roll.
There you go.
Okay,
Not bad.
you hurl Misery's End at, literally as this creature banks away, the arrow going through its wing to try and get away from Sinclair. You sort of like pop out from the rocks next to him, hurl Misery's End. It spins through the air, striking this thing in its body and basically pulping it and carrying on through it as this bat pretty much explodes. And then Misery's End sort of loops around and returns to your waiting hand.
Nice.
There are now only 8 of the creatures remaining. Harp, it's over to you. You've seen Leopold and Sinclair working together have felled one of the great beasts.
Okay, so what I want to do is jump out from behind my stone.
Yep.
Grab Caroline Dixon and push her back into cover.
That's fine. That'll be your movement action, so you can still make an attack. You're pretty much like, get down, and like pull her back behind.
Okay,
Cover.
and then with my offhand, I will just swing my sword at the nearest bat.
Go for it.
And miss, I think. Yes, I miss.
Indeed. Unfortunately, you're so preoccupied with like getting Caroline back behind cover, you just sort of like swing wildly and it doesn't manage to hit one of the creatures. However, we've still got the man, the legend, Weimar Lone Grove of the Wooden Leg.
Up a lock.
So, I guess I'd be generally close by Harp,
Yep.
as we've been the sort of artillery
Yeah,
barrage.
we're keeping it fairly loose, so obviously you guys can be roughly sort of where you need to be.
Tucks the pistol back in. I don't have the time to reload it.
It's true.
And no, it's just out comes the sun sword.
So the scene you're in is suddenly lit by this amber glow as he pulls out this sun sword. Flames lick around the blade, illuminating the scene and actually making it a lot easier to see the bats. So you will now all get a +2 to your attack rolls because you can now see them. And Weimar, in a voice that's not his own, goes, "Come at me, you furry devils!"
I was like, Weimar says in a voice not his own, it's like, "You fool, this is my hour."
Indeed.
He goes in for the swing, sort of like, because Harp is doing the like, get back into cover. So I'll be sort of supporting that. It's like coming in after the fact. It's like, like fending them off. And let's see how that goes. Sun sword. Here we go. Come on, praise Gale.
Whoa.
Okay, so you swing your sword. You only manage to catch one of the creatures, a glancing blow to its furry body, but there is a satisfying sort of sizzle as a few like splatters of blood from the creature fall on the flaming blade of the sun sword, and like tss, as the blood evaporates almost instantly. Okay, we then come to the creatures. There are 8 of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to just work my way down the line and have like 1 attack each person rather than roll like an absolute ruck ton of dice. So first of all, we're going to have 1 attacking Brock. Okay, it hits. Okay, so you take 2 hit points of damage, Brock, as one of these creatures sort of zooms in, like bites a small chunk out of your shoulder, and then sort of flapping its wings sort of rises up away from you. Okay, so then we have 1 attacking Caroline Dixon. And also I'm taking into account you've got the +2. That has hit. That does 2 hit points of damage to Caroline Dixon. I'm relying on whoever's rolling for them to like track the hit points.
Taken care of, yeah.
So yeah, literally just as you're pulling down like Caroline Dixon into cover, Harp, one of these creatures like sort of zoomed in, like claws at her back before the 2 of you are able to just like bat it away. Although you don't cause it any damage, no pun intended. Okay, so the 1 attacking Dick Simpson. Misses. So it comes screaming in. As we said previously, Dick Simpson's got his shield up above his head and it scrabbles at the wooden shield but is unable to get through it. So the 1 attacking Sinclair. Again, also misses. As it comes towards him, this is just for flavour, he like fires off an arrow in its direction and it wheels to avoid it. Okay, 1 attacking Leopold. It gets nowhere near you. You sort of like, again, just for flavour, you like throw Misery's End and it wheels away to avoid that, and the hammer comes back into your hand. Doesn't get anywhere near you. Okay, 1 attacking Malcolm. Again, 1 comes towards you and you're able to fend it off, no problems. Okay, 1 coming for Weimar. Misses you, but only thanks to your cover. So as it comes in, you duck behind the rocks and it has to like wheel away from you to avoid like smashing into this rocky outcropping. Now the two that are remaining, I'm going to do against your 2 hirelings, Caroline and Dick Simpson. So 1 against Caroline. Misses. Obviously you've managed to get her into cover, Harp. And the 1 against Dick Simpson.
There's only 8 now, isn't there, John?
Yeah, there's 2 left and that's it.
I thought there was 7 of us.
There is. Oh yeah, you're right, yeah. My apologies.
I just thought there'd only be 1 left over, I meant.
That's fine. Ignore that last one, which didn't do anything. It wouldn't have done much anyway. Okay, so it's back round to your guys' turn again. So Brock. Obviously, the air is full of flapping, furred bodies. People are shouting, diving behind cover, raising shields. You can hear Hart being like, Caroline, get down!
So, yeah, I shall, with a more target-rich environment, I'm going to swing through the air and just hope to hit something with this large weapon.
Go for it.
Oh, he's useless.
Okay, so again, you swing your sword, but you're unable to land a blow on one of the creatures.
I'm going to start cursing at their speed.
Indeed.
Fluttering around.
With your sort of heavy sort of weapon, obviously you're swinging quite strongly, but it's a bit slow to like move. And these creatures are like masters of the air. They're everywhere. Okay, Caroline Dixon, now behind cover. What's she doing?
She is just going to swing her hand axe.
Okay.
Ooh, not so much.
Okay, so she swings her hand axe, but obviously she's sort of slightly thrown off balance. You've like literally just grabbed her and flung her behind cover, and she doesn't manage to get near it. Let's see if Dick Simpson can do any better.
On Dick. No.
Well, unfortunately not. Now, you know for a fact that you guys have hired these people. They're just like sort of standard men-at-arms. They're used to like fending off wolves maybe and like patrolling walls. Being attacked by like giant bats is probably a first for most of them. They're not adventurers, so you're not surprised that they're not really sort of like up to snuff as far as you guys are concerned. Maybe Gordon Sinclair can do better though.
They're really hard to hit anyway. I'm not.
Yeah, they're moving so
judging them
quickly
at all.
and wheeling and looping around in the air. It is very difficult to hit. However, Gordon Sinclair, with his longbow, he fires an arrow, and it just glances one of the creatures, sort of causing a very shallow wound on it. Leopold, you see this arrow just like slice the very edge of this creature's body. What do you do?
I think Leopold's gonna, when one swoops down nearby, as maybe that one that when he threw the hammer, it kind of like put it off. And as it sort of took evasive action, he's going to like try and grab hold of it and then just hit it upside the head. Like hang onto its foot or grab its wing or something and just like.
Are you like just bashing it into the ground, or are you hitting it with something?
Yeah. He's like going to kind of see if he can grab hold of it, pull it down, and then just crown it on the head.
Okay, roll me a d20.
Is that not rolled?
Okay, roll me 2d6.
See, fortune favours the bold there. Ooh.
Okay, so what happens is you see this creature as the arrow's fired from Gordon Sinclair. It gets like grazed by this arrow, and it sort of wobbles a bit and sort of like dips down low as it sort of put off its flight path, and you literally like jump up from behind this rock you're in, grab both its wings and go boom, and like smash it into this
Pile
rock.
driver. Dude.
And just this spray of like bat blood just like sprays all over you as you pretty much just pulp it into this rock. Sinclair like looks over towards you and he's like, and then he's like,
Yeah. Wiping down his face.
indeed. Okay, Hop.
Okay, so because Caroline is injured, what I want to try and do is attack one of the creatures and then put myself between her and the creatures, ideally so that she can't be attacked and I'll be attacked twice.
That's absolutely fine. You can certainly do that. Make your attack roll. There are currently 6 of these creatures left.
And there are still 6 when I'm finished.
Indeed. So unfortunately, because you spend so much time like manoeuvring like Caroline, who is like quite injured, and sort of getting yourself in the way of her, that you don't really have the time to like do a considered strike.
The best defense is an offense, Hop.
You hear from Leopold as you look round. He looks like someone's
This is like badoosh.
Leopold looks like someone slid him on his face through an abattoir at the moment. He's like covered in guano and blood and bits of bat and fur. But
And he's just got a massive. You just see this massive grin through his beard.
indeed. Okay, Weimar. 6 of these creatures left.
Is the one that I scorched still around?
No, it's not.
Yeah. I'm just continuing to flank with Harp.
Okay.
Sun Sword going in. Pray. Nah.
Oh, that's enough because you get +2 because of the light, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, 14 then.
And that is what you need. You need a 13 or more to hit, so you've hit it.
Yep.
So
And
again,
damage.
that
Whoop whoop.
you only do a slight sort of cut to one of these creatures, and the smell of burning fur wafts into the air. And then we come to the creatures themselves. As I say, there's 6 of them left. So the first one attacking Brock. Now, you might not have been able to hit them, but using your big sword, you're able to like easily fend them off, Brock. Now, normally there would be one attacking Caroline, but since she's covered by Malcolm, it's going to attack Malcolm. You're able to fend it off successfully, Malcolm. You might not have been able to hit them, but again, you're keeping them off Caroline, so it doesn't hit you. One coming at Dick Simpson. And then we have 3 left. Again, Dick Simpson's still covered by his shield. He's fine. Okay, one against Gordon. Luckily, because he is in cover and gets that +2 AC, he is safe. He's like sheltered by the rocks. Although it's scrabbling with its claws, it's not able to get at him. Okay, so we've got 2 left. So that's going to be 1 on Leopold and 1 on Malcolm. So the one on Leopold hits you. You take 4 damage as just as you're still sort of like holding up these severed bat wings, like covered in blood, and you're like, yes, feel my righteous dwarven fury. You suddenly feel like a sharp pain on the back of your neck.
Bastard.
One of the creatures has like landed on the back of your neck, and it's like bit a chunk out the back of your neck.
I left myself prone.
Indeed, obviously deduct 4 hit points from yourself.
Is it the bottom or the top number?
Top one.
Is it?
Big one.
Okay, so the final one attacking Hop. Just hits you.
No, well, mine AC is 16 and I have 2 for cover, right?
I apologise, I was looking at the wrong AC. I was looking at Weimar's AC. So, yeah, it comes towards you. You think, oh, it's got you dead to rights. Then you duck behind some of the stone and it sort of scrabbles at the stone for a bit and then wheels off. And we come back round to Brock.
Right. Hopefully we've got them on the run now, so we can gang up on them, catch one unawares.
Who's got them on the run?
Well, not, I said we. I didn't say me. Do I get a +2?
You do, yeah. Unfortunately,
Hey, that's 13, isn't it?
that's 13. Yeah, you have hit one of them. So,
Woo!
so as you're jumping up and you're like, we think we've got him on the run, and you hear like Leopold going, who's got him on the run? You to demonstrate your manly prowess, you sort of like without even looking, you just like swing your sword up and round, and one of these creatures is sliced into and drops to the ground into like neat portions.
I turned to Gordon and see, look, I knew that'd do the trick. You just got to goad him. You just got to goad him into action.
Okay, I've just made a morale check for the giant bats since you've killed a load of them. They have passed, so they continue their attack. So, Caroline.
Okay, so another hand axe attack.
Indeed.
Which I'm guessing is a miss. Yeah, that's a miss.
Indeed. She gets close this time, but no cigar. Dick Simpson.
He steps up.
It's the Keystone Cops we got with us.
He steps up, and with the +2, he's got 13, which is a hit.
Oh.
So he does step up and he swings, but again, it's only a very shallow wound on this creature. But at least he's hit, and you can see like he's got like a big like shit-eating grin on his face. Obviously, he's glad to have actually like done something in this combat. But he quickly ducks behind his like shield. Okay, Gordon.
Come on, Gordon. Get in there, my son. Oh, mate. What you doing, bruv?
That's a hit for 1 point.
Indeed. He fires off an arrow and it grazes another one of the bats. Okay, Leopold.
All right. Take a swipe. Just enough, is it?
That's just enough.
Oof.
Okay, so you strike one of these bats, presumably with your hammer.
Yeah.
Are you throwing it, or are you just literally like bashing
No,
one as they get close?
Yeah, like probably one was coming down for Gordon after he didn't really do the business, and I just like bat it away from him.
Indeed, you bat it away from Gordon, and it sort of wheels away. It's obviously very injured, but it's still going. Hop.
Curses.
Okay, so pretty much same again, John. I want to jump out long enough to attack one and then force Caroline back into a corner. So here we go. So that's a hit for 8 points.
Indeed. So the one that sort of Leopold has just batted away, and it's like wheeling in your direction to avoid him. What weapon are you using?
Scimitar.
So as it sort of flaps towards you guys, already injured, you step up with your scimitar and slice its head off, as it's like sort of like trying to keep away from Leopold and has accidentally wandered into your range, and it drops to the ground headless. The wings flutter for a little bit, and then it lies still. And now it's Weimar. There are 4 of these creatures left. 2 of them are slightly injured.
Is there the one that I've started barbecuing?
Indeed, there is.
Still in my sights? Good.
Yep.
We will turn up the heat with the sun sword again. I think there's by now a kind of maneuver that me and Harp are doing with the sort of like dashing in and out, whereby he leads it, and when he starts backing off, I get in to cover
Nice.
for him.
Love it.
And here goes with the sun sword. Praise Gale. Actual damage.
Okay, yeah, so
That's how you do it. That's how you do it.
So you sort of point the sun sword at the bat that you've already scorched, and as it zooms back in for another attack, you swing the sun sword in this massive fiery arc that briefly the flames flare brighter, illuminating the scene around you all, and there is this small sort of fiery explosion of burning fur as another one of the giant bats meets its end, leaving only 3 remaining. I'm going to make another morale check
Just
for them.
vaporized in the air.
Yeah, pretty much.
There's been a team of digital artists working on that for weeks to get that.
At which point, having seen one of their number explode in like a fireball, basically, the other bats start like fluttering up into the air and start wheeling off towards the northeast, abandoning their attack on you. And after a few moments, you're panting, you're sort of looking around, ready for another attack. Everything falls quiet. There's just the sound of your laboured breaths and like the clink of metal as you're all sort of like checking your weapons and you're all sort of coming out of cover and looking around.
Leopold will have a little poke around these bats and look around for one of these wilderness fellas. Yeah, you reckon we could eat these?
Nah.
No.
Nah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe your
literally.
dwarven metabolism might stomach it, but
I would, yeah.
You would, yeah. Yeah, I was thinking it'd be a shame to waste them, but
Anyone who wants to eat one of the bats, effectively you can like regain the ration you would have eaten because you'll let the bats instead. But there may be unintended consequences. Depends what the bats have been eating. It's down to you guys.
I'll eat some bat.
Okay.
I'll get that. Well, there's all that talk of kebabs from Weimar, you know.
I'd eat a bat.
Okay.
Our people struggle to find food, so don't like to waste it.
Yeah, we can't be too fussy in the Underdark, and
So you can stick 2 rations back on your group supply, Harp, because those 2 aren't eating the rations, they're eating the bats. Can anyone who's eating a bat roll me a d6?
John, do you have a bat
6.
table to roll on?
No, I don't.
Double
Okay.
6.
Luckily for you guys, obviously due to your hardy Ice Walker and Dwarf constitutions respectively, the taste's a little bit gamey, but you're fine.
we'll be sitting there going, "Yeah, that ain't bad. That's good eating. That's good eating,
Yeah.
that bat."
Yeah, and because they're giant bats, there's a lot of meat on them.
There's a lot of meat, yeah.
And to be honest, Weimar's already like partially cooked some of it for you, so you know.
Exactly.
Yep. I'll just skewer
prefer
one on
my-
my sun
That's
sword,
it.
just like rotate it.
That's it. You don't need to. You could just like put it on, put a few on, and then switch it on.
It's not a
For
light.
few
It's a
minutes
holy
and you just
weapon, not a
take it-
lightsaber.
What an
Yeah. I'll be there just cooking them and just like, this isn't really what I'm meant to be doing.
This is not a fitting occupation for a blade of the
This is
sun.
demeaning. I will have you know.
I'll have mine well done. I don't want it just sealed.
Indeed.
That's it.
And the rest of the night, thankfully, passes uneventfully. You all wake up the next morning. Most of you, not really the worst for wear, although Caroline is looking a bit rough. She's got like a couple of like deep wounds on her from these bat creatures.
Do you get any hit points back for overnight?
If you had a night of uninterrupted rest, you would. But your
right, this
night
is
of
during
rest
the
is-
night. Yeah, sorry.
your night's been far from uninterrupted.
Yeah.
However, if the next night passes uneventfully, she will get like D3 hit points back, which considering she's only got like 4 hit points.
It's pretty decent.
I mean, would the ring help her in that situation, do we think, or is that not really?
If you want to give her the ring,
What did the snore glass do? The snort
snag. That's for putting
Snort
people to
snag.
sleep.
Oh yeah,
Slumber grass.
yeah.
It's only because she's only got like 4 hit points, I think.
We got any? We ain't got no. We got no herbs left or anything.
No.
Hmm.
Do you feel like the ring is working, Weimar?
You have noticed no change to like your leg, Weimar.
I don't know what that would be like. So I don't know.
But I think Caroline might be in more immediate need.
Well, from what they said, we're thinking it might not work because of the fire sword, wasn't it?
But we also know it's going to take a long time, so
Yeah, as well. Yeah.
True. Yes. I reckon. I reckon we should put the ring on Caroline. See if we can heal what is clearly ailing her.
Is that what you guys want to do?
it's up to you, Weimar, I think.
Sure.
Okay, so you give the ring to Caroline, and within an hour, it will have cured her, so you can bump her hit points back up.
Okay. At which point we can give the ring back to Weimar.
Indeed. And then you guys start making ready to press on the next day. You can see your goal, the sort of area of the Grey Heights, maybe like a day or two away, the area that supposedly houses the mystical Mithril. But before we press on for a day, I'm going to suggest we have our 5-10 minute break here. We'll come back in 10 minutes and then we'll crack on again.
Okie dokie.
John, while you're
Yes,
while
mate.
you're there, just during that combat, Brock would have been super nervous about that whole sword situation
Yeah,
because he's got a real strong thing about magic.
yeah.
So he's definitely going to be wary of getting too close to this Weimar guy.
Yeah, and you certainly
So-
notice at several points, like, whilst Weimar was wielding this sword, like, his voice seemed to noticeably change. Like,
Yeah.
as he was talking, like, when he was shouting, "Come at me, you fairy devils!"
So I didn't want to interrupt in the
No,
middle of
that's
combat,
fine.
but yeah, it'll be noticeably. It would be trying to hide it. That obviously he's fearful of this magic, but
Yeah, that's
you know,
fine. Feel free to roleplay that how you see fit.
If they're walking about, you know, it'll be at the other end of the line. If Weimar's down one side, and when this ring starts moving around, he won't want any of that, even though he's like took some damage. He's just super suspicious and cautious of it. But he is trying to hide it from the rest as much as possible at this stage.
That's cool. Thank you for letting me know. Like I say, obviously, feel free to roleplay that how you see
Yeah. I was just dropping it in there just so you're aware. Hope you weren't too disappointed about the old Friday situation. Are you still keeping the other game going on the alternates?
Yeah, I will do. I knew it was a long shot anyway, but I thought if I don't ask, I'll be wondering about it. So, yeah. Not disappointed at all. I know everyone's busy.
I take it you hadn't even put it to them, so...
No, I'd mentioned it to you guys, and I was like, there's no point bringing it up and starting to worry about rescheduling unless we had to go ahead.
Yeah.
And like I said, I knew it was a long shot anyway, because I know how busy Colin is at the minute with all his retraining and everything. So, but I was like, if you don't ask, you don't know, do you?
Yeah, I mean, I was keen for it. I had a bit of a discussion about it, and I think it would have worked out. But yeah, I'm happy either way, obviously.
Well, I mean, if you want to jump into the other game at any point.
Well, it was a sort of you know, when I raised the issue, it was sort of all right sort of thing. So I thought,
that's
okay.
fine.
So I thought, in hindsight, it hasn't caused any issues, and
Yeah, I understand.
so. Not I would have been happy to do it. I enjoy it. So
Yeah, that's fine, man.
how did the mummy go this week? Did you play this week?
Yeah, we play
did.
every week. Yeah, we're currently doing the first turn, so like we're sort of like back in time to like the ancient Egypt days.
Or the original?
Like, yeah, like literally, we've just become mummies. We don't really know what we are or like what our names are and stuff like that. And it's quite cool because we've gone from being like we are uber powerful mummies to like, oh, we've got like a few tricks. We don't really know our names. We don't know what's going on. So we're sort of like wandering around and we're like meeting all these people like we will know in the future, like other mummies and whatever. And we're like sort of trying to feel people out and sort of work out what's going on.
So you're trainee mummies.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's the
We're like
it's
the
kind
work
of
experience
training-
mummies.
Yeah, it's the kind of work experience where you don't know that you have a boss, you don't know where you are, what your job is, or who you are, and there might be extremely hostile HR operatives in the field who are looking for an excuse to execute you.
Yeah, we basically found this guy who like in the future is like one of our like close associates, and he was like injured and being attacked by like this like weird like vampire like shadow man thing, and like basically he's missing a leg, he's like ripped to pieces. The only reason he's alive is because he's in a risen. And I was like to Matthew's character, I was like, all right, strap this guy on your back and like we're going to head to this place. I'll try and delay this thing. You like get him out of here, and like fighting this thing, and like it's basically got the same tricks that I've got, only better. And I'm fighting it, and I've got this artifact, this like leather braid that basically instead of like spending willpower, you can spend like your memory, which is like your traits for how much you remember. We've only got one at the minute because we barely know anything. And I'm like, check with Johannes, it wasn't going to like derail the session. And then I'm like, yeah, I'll spend the memory. So like I go into attack this thing, like fail abysmally because it's far better than me, and I'm not like a combat dude. And but when you lose your memory, you pretty much become like an automaton, and you just like go back to your tomb, and like you don't have any memory or sense of self. So I go in to attack this thing, miss it, and then as far as I'm concerned, like just wink out, and like I don't remember anything else until I wake up like about 50 miles to the south, or probably even further. And I just sort of like wake up in the desert, and I'm like, I've no idea what happened, but I'm like, oh, I'll go to this city we were going to go to see if like the others are there, and sort of trekked up north to like rejoin them. And they're like, oh, you must be a mighty warrior, you survived against this creature. And I'm like, I'd love to say I was, but I don't actually remember what happened. So like,
Yeah,
I've no
I
idea.
kind of blacked out.
Yeah, I'm like, I swung an axe at him, everything went black. I woke up like 50 plus miles to the south in the desert.
So you like humans at this point then?
No, we're still mummies. Like we still got the innate powers, because you have like different like
You look
types.
like mummies.
No, because you sort of like clothe yourself in like an illusion of like what you look like. It's only when you first rise up you tend to like look like a mummy because you're too powerful to like contain it.
All right.
But yeah, at the minute we're basically like, we are mummies, but we've only got, instead of like all the learned like magics we'll have in the future, we've only got like a couple of like innate tricks, and because we're low power, we can't use a lot of our stuff. So aside from the fact like if we get killed, we'll eventually come back. That's really, and we don't need to eat or rest. That's really all we've got going for ourselves at the minute.
Yeah.
So if it had been 2016, I'd have like wrecked that thing in the desert.
Yeah, and you might have been able to just like, you were in a necropolis.
Yeah.
So you would have been able, oh, there's ancient bones or dead people mummified. I'll just have an army of those.
Yeah, I'll be like, I'll deal with you after like my zombie horde's finished with you.
Yeah.
But because like in the future I can like raise the dead and talk to spirits and stuff like that. I've got all the necromancy. Whereas in the past, I've not learnt all of that yet. So I'm basically like, we've just got to the point where I've got a bit of my power back, and I'm like, oh, I can like disappear into shadows and like do like a sort of shadow step deal. But like during this combat, I couldn't even do that. I was like, I've got like a magic axe which maybe does a bit more damage, but like I've got to actually hit something with it first, which is a bit of an issue for me. And I've got like a magic like leather braid that basically lets me like spend memory, which I've got virtually none of, instead of willpower. So like, even though I've got a few magical bits and pieces, they're not tremendously useful at the minute.
So you haven't actually got to the end of the game,
No.
and you're playing up to the end point as such.
Yeah, what we've been doing is we're treating our 2016 as sort of like the quote-unquote current timeline, which is where we're progressing quote-unquote the main story, and we're doing flashbacks to different periods in history in a sort of like asynchronous order. So we've done stuff in the sort of Crusades era, Syria. We've been to Japan in the 17th century. We've been to Britain in the Roman times.
That was rough.
And, yeah, that was a bad time.
Matthew's character got killed.
Yeah. And now we're doing the 2371 before Common Era, Egypt. So when we're talking, like, when, let's say, like, pop culture says ancient Egypt, that's like 1,500 years too new for our purposes. So we're in the way back of ancient Egypt.
Yeah, it's cool though, being able to like jump around all these different time periods, and like, we'll keep coming across people and you learn like more about them. Like there's this guy called Sackmist, who in the future is like one of like the young like rebels like fighting the system.
He's a gang lord.
Yeah, he's like a proper like gangster. Whereas we've just met him like at the very start in the past, and he's like more sort of like regal and like together. But like each time you die and you come back, like you struggle to maintain your memories. So he's like effectively like a different person at the minute. But because we're sort of like exploring this as though our characters are remembering it in the present, when I see him again in the future, because I'm like pretty tight with him, I can be like, oh, do you remember this like in the past? And when you mention it to people, it spurs their memories. So I'm hoping I can sort of like get him to like take a bit more control of like his group. But like, oh, do you remember when you were like a king, pretty much back in like ancient Egypt? Like, you know, in the sky, tell you what to do.
So there's quite a few NPCs that go through all the timelines as well. Then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
the Arisen, all the other mummies do.
Yeah.
Yep, and of course, some number of like mortal people as well. But like they're more than any other World of Darkness game. Like their lives are just like just blinking an eye for a mummy.
Okay, is everyone ready to jump back in?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so the next day after the bat incident, the weather is lightened slightly. There's still a light rain, more of a sort of drizzle, but it's still wet. It's still fairly unpleasant, but it's nowhere near as bad as it was. And you continue your journey, guided by the skills of both Harp and Baroque Montaigne through the mountains. And as you're scaling sort of working your way around a particularly large mountain, as you look across to the east, you can see a portion of the map that you had previously not explored, if I can work out how to reveal it. Alright, I see how you work. There we go. So as you look to the east from the top of this mountain, you can see what appears to be a plateau, and shortly beyond that the beginnings of the great icebergs to the east. And from the top, nearly the top of this mountain, you can just glimpse in the middle of this plateau is what appears to be a small village.
Is there any recognition of that village previously?
Indeed. You know that this is the village of Leng, populated by a strange, even to your people, they're like strange, diminutive creatures with all of these strange superstitions about winter spirits, and they have some like weird sort of burial rites and stuff. Your people don't tend to associate with them because they see them as sort of like a cursed people.
Okay, sure. I shall relay that information to the rest of the group.
Okay, no problems. And as you continue your travel through the Grey Heights Mountains, you know that comparatively you've left the sort of open grave of John Cameron behind, and you know that it was roughly round about here where you originally met the old master of the Order of Solaris. And as you continue north past this point here during the day, you know that just to the east of that is the ruined Order of Solaris Abbey, where you first recovered the Sun Sword. And as you travel, Weimar, you and you only in your head, you hear the voice of the Sun Sword recalling the many hundreds, thousands of years it lay dormant in that dank chest before you came along and recovered me and brought me back into the light of day.
Well, here's to many more years of daylight. I'll say out loud to myself.
Okay, so yes, as you're travelling along, Brock, you're sort of within earshot of Weimar, and he's walking along, and just suddenly randomly, just like to no one in particular, goes, "Here's to many more days of walking in the light."
Yeah, I'll be quite suspicious of that, and I'll walk a bit further away from him.
Okay, no.
Harp will just come over and just go, "Don't worry about it. He talks to his sword sometimes."
Don't know that helps.
Yeah, that's not normal. That's not normal. You should. Yeah, I mean, I swear by my sword, and yeah, I wouldn't leave it out of sight, but I don't talk to it.
Your sword is not the same as his sword. His sword is different.
Yeah, he's.
Anyway, have no fear.
And you're saying this as it gets to the end of the day, you're setting up your camp, so you all need to eat a ration. And during the evening, as most of you are asleep, apart from one of you who's on watch, you're all awoken by a loud, gruffer voice going, "Ho there!" And you so go ahead.
Sorry, assuming I'm on watch,
That's fine, yeah.
I'll just be like, "Who's that? Where are you?"
As you sort of look around, you see like a small wooden cart with like a single draft horse pulling it, and sat on it, there's like a tarp over the little cart, but sat on like the front sort of driver's plate, you can see a single, what appears to be dwarf with like a large gingery beard, and he's like, "Oh there, I mean you no harm."
That's fine. You're welcome to share our fire.
Oh, splendid. He sort of like, he steers his cart round you with a wooden wheel sort of rumbling through the slush. He's like, whoa there, Bessie, whoa there, that's fine. And he pulls the cart to a stop and climbs down from it. As he's doing so, you can see that like just under like the tarp, you can see that there's like pickaxes and various other like equipment on his cart. He jumps down from it and he's like, well met to you. My name is Krosnon.
Krosnon?
Indeed. I hadn't expected to see many other people this far north. Not yet, anyway.
Aye. And what has you this far north yourself? Meanwhile, I'll be kicking Leo. Like, way more times than is absolutely necessary to wake up.
Wait, hey, get out of it. Gotcha.
Not a problem.
What's up with your heart?
This dwarf's bellowing, so anyone who wants to wake up can wake up. And you see this dwarf. He's actually got like a miner's helmet on as he's been riding.
You, sir.
It's like, a fellow Calner. I don't see many of our sort around here.
Leopold Starish, pleased to meet you.
He's like, Krosnon from the Ironhold fortress.
The Ironhold, eh?
Back on Rolling.
Long time since I've been down that way.
And then to answer Harp's question that you asked me, like, why are you this far north? He's like, I've bought one of the mining claims from the Lord of the Eastbourne Fort, and I've heard rumours there's Mithril in those mountains, and well, if it's there, I'm damn well going to sniff it out.
Selling claims, indeed, is he?
He says, yes. He says, I believe the lords of both forts are selling claims. Cost me a pretty penny to get one, I'll tell you. 100 gold pieces, no less.
No less. Well, I hope you find enough metal to make it worth your while. We ourselves are heading north with no claim, because we don't believe that the lords are entitled to charge for such. We make our own claims. He
raises his eyebrows, but his bushy eyebrows, but he's like, perhaps you're right. I can't say. And he says, he sort of looks around like he is like surveying your camp, and he's like, I don't mean to sound terribly rude, but I don't actually see any mining equipment. How do you plan on mining for Mithril? After all, you're not just going to find it lying around in the mountains.
Don't worry, brother. Mr. Stavish here, myself, will have all that under control. These folk are not miners. I'm an engineer, mining engineer myself, and it's more of a recon mission.
Oh, I see. Fact-finding and that sort.
Yes, prospecting.
Indeed. He says, well, from what I've heard, there's not been a great deal of actual mithril that's been seen coming out of the mountains, aside from a few small ingots and rumours and that, but And he sort of like he waggles a finger at the sky and he's like, "But you mark my words, if there's mithril in those mountains, I'll find it. Or my name's not Krosnon Ironhold."
And tell me, Krasnan, would you be interested in traveling that far with us?
Yes, I suppose. Safety in numbers and all that.
Yes, indeed.
He says, however, once we get to the mountains, I'll obviously go my own way. I can't have anyone else impinging on my claim, and likewise, I wouldn't want to impinge on your claim.
No.
But yes, I don't see why we can't travel to the mountains together. I'm afraid my cart's not very quick. And he jerks his thumb over his shoulder at the horse. I'm afraid Bess is a little bit past her prime, but she gets the job done. Rather like my good self.
Ah, indeed. And might you be willing to part with some of your equipment should we require purchasing of it?
He says, well, I don't have a great deal to spare. I think I've got a couple of picks that I could probably let you have. I tell you what, call it 20 coins and I'll give you the 2 picks.
Yeah, let us have 2 picks.
He sort of holds his hand out for the coins, assuming you give him like 20 gold pieces. He hands over these 2 just like normal miners picks to you, and he says, "Yes, luckily for you, I bought a couple of spare, in case one of them gets damaged. But hopefully, if you do strike it rich in the mountains, you'll remember that old Krosnon helped you out along the way."
Indeed. And yeah. So tell me, how long have you been in this part of the world?
He says, a couple of months. I've not really gone far from the forts, though, to be honest. Didn't see any reason to until these rumours of Mithril.
And which forts have you been in?
He says, Eastburn, mostly. I did spend a little bit of time in Fort Kersey, and obviously Fort Hawk further to the north, but...
Okay. And what can you tell us about Fort Hawk?
He says, not a great deal, to be honest. I only really passed through. There's a little bit of trading goes on there. I'm sure you can guess by the name. The Lord of the Fortress is quite taken with his falconry. At least that's what I heard. But I only really stopped off there to get some supplies. Rather like yourself, I was doing a bit of fact-finding, trying to find out rumours any more about the mountains, etc.
Okay. And can you tell us where... Sorry. I was
going to say that as you're doing this discussion, Harp, I will have rolled out our map, and I will have gone to our new friend here. It's like, would you please mind this fort? Whereabouts? I don't think we've successfully located it on our little map here.
Okay, so I'm going to reveal a couple of areas on your map.
Oh, why am I never misses an opportunity to get the old map updated?
Yep. It's the one thing that we...
Okay, so he reveals a couple of areas that he sort of like... He lightly sort of sketches in on your map. However, he tells you that the fort is actually north of there. So effectively, it's on a different map.
Yeah. But so he's giving me the general idea of like...
Yeah.
So we're here... Roughly this distance, there's nothing, and then the fort is here.
Yeah, he basically said if you sort of headed off this edge of the map, you'd soon find it.
Right. Okay, yeah. No, I'll scuttle away afterwards.
Not a problem.
It's mighty bold of you there, brother, to head out on your own. I think it would be well for you to, like my good companion here, Mr. Harp, suggests to join us for the journey. We've encountered some tricky foes.
And he says, well, yes, I know it's a bit risky going out on my own, but if I'd got a joint claim with someone else, then I'd need to split any wealth I found with them. Whereas if I strike Mithril now, it's all mine.
Yeah, and spend it if you're dead.
He says, well, no, that's true. He said, but me and old Bessie have got through tough scrapes before.
Yeah, well, I suppose one man and his wagon is, well, one dwarf and his wagon is less likely to attract uninvited attention. So there may be something in it.
Indeed. And at this point, Weimar, I'm going to ask, can you please roll me a d6?
It is indeed a 6.
Okay, splendid. So as you watch, as you're sort of looking around, again you see the large lizard-like shape to the south of you moving across the sky, its shadow cast across the land. It seems to skirt the edge of the lake that surrounds Witch Isle and be heading towards the mountains to the northwest of it. And again you hear this slight sort of roaring screech in the distance, but it's still fairly far away from you.
Hopefully that means New Zealand is safe.
Indeed.
For now, at least.
And the next day you travel on. You continue travelling through the Grey Heights mountain range, guided by Harp and Brock, avoiding some of the more dangerous natural hazards of the environment. You're accompanied by Krosnon, whose wagon sort of rattles alongside you. As you're moving through a sort of particularly narrow, rocky path, being very careful to sort of guide your wagon with the greatest of care so it doesn't tip off the edge, from up ahead you hear like a sort of a low rumbling growl.
Like a bear.
You think that for a few minutes, but it doesn't sound like a bear. And then as you sort of round the corner, you can see ahead of you what appears to be a large white and black cat with two dagger-like fangs protruding from its maw, as you see this large saber-toothed tiger that appears to be busily devouring the remains of a mountain goat on the path ahead of you.
Okay. This could be my time to shine or my time to die. So I would like to take out a ration or something that we might have that would be exciting to a saber-toothed tiger, and approach it and try and get it to be friendly to me.
Mr. Harp is eating a goat already, sir.
I still think it's worth a shot.
He's gonna take your. He's gonna
dessert,
take your
right?
jerky. He's gonna take your dry ass jerky.
It's an old Dobie.
Well, we have a bit of bat left.
I think I'm just gonna bust out a Hamlet and sit back and watch.
Okay, so as you're like dun 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 dun, dun, Harp pulls out like a bit of like dry jerky and sort of gingerly moves towards this saber-toothed tiger that sort of looks up and lets out that low feline warning growl in the back of its throat. Blood stains its maw, dripping from its fangs as like a bit of goat meat plops to the ground.
This is what you call
Smell.
foreshadowing.
Can I ask you, please make me a charisma roll,
Okay.
Mr. Harp.
Say versus shit your pants.
I'm going to get prepared because I can see this going horribly wrong.
Yeah, you've got Brock there. He's like, I'm not saying this won't work, but shh.
Okay, that's a failure.
Okay, so it obviously it's got too many hit dice for you to like make an animal companion, but I'm gonna make a reaction roll for it.
He's going full Ritz.
Okay, so as you sort of start going towards it, you're holding out this meat. It lets out like a loud feline hiss and a rumble of warning that lets you know like it's not buying what you're selling. However, it's currently got a big goat that it's eating, so like, and you're not really actually threatening it, so it's not leaping to attack you. It's basically giving you the warning growl, which you know is like the animal basically going like, "Go and do one." it sort of does that big like, and you hear the low rumbling growl again in its throat as it bares these like dagger-like fangs.
Okay. At which point I suggest that we move around it and keep going.
Good idea.
Yeah, absolutely fine. It's busy eating the goat. It sees no reason to pursue a far more difficult meal when it's got an easy one. So yeah, once you start going around, then it realises you're sort of out of its way. It goes back to noisily chomping on the carcass of this goat, paying you no further heed. You give it a wide berth and continue moving.
You had visions of riding into combat on your saber-toothed tiger there, didn't you, Mr.
I
Hart?
did a little bit.
I can't blame you, man. I can't blame you.
And holding aloft your sword.
That's it, by the power of New Zealand.
Indeed. And you once again make camp at the end of the day. You all need to eat a ration.
Okay.
They do make good meals, though, Sabretooth.
It's true. Okay, so the next day, near the end of the day, darkness is just falling. You reach the outskirts of the area where you were told Mithril had been found. At which point Krosnan will be like, "Right, we're here. I wish you all the best of luck, gentlemen." And he sort of starts going on his own way on his cart.
Is he happy to tell us where his claim is so that we can check in on him, or is he...
He tells you his claim is sort of up here.
Okay.
And obviously, you know, the sort of like the blue area is where Mithril's to be found.
Yeah, well, be sure to drop by and come and say hello. And if ever you're down in the area of New Zealand, come and look us up. You'll be more than welcome.
He's like, "Well, I expect this is going to keep me busy for some time." He shouts as he's driving up, and he's like, "Thank you for the invite. I may swing by there at some point.
Yeah,
All the best of luck, gentlemen." And he sort of goes off, and you can hear him sort of like dimly fading away as he's like talking to his horse. Okay, so now you're in the sort of Mithril catchment area as such. If you want to fully explore, like leaving no stone unturned, pardon the pun, you can explore 3 of the smallest hexes per day. If you want to explore one of the 6 mile hexes, the second sort of tier ones, it will take you... Just lost it on my notes. 8 days to explore an entire sort of 6 mile subhex. So, what do you want to do? You've got a couple of picks. You've heard there's rumours of Mithril in the mountains. What's the plan, guys?
How much food would we have for this expedition?
We have about 15 days of food, and it took us 8 days to get here. So we have a week's food. Now, we may be able to...
We could explore one.
I'm a good hunter.
Yeah, me too. So we could hunt and try and add more food while the rest of the party try to do the searching.
You might have a bit more luck hunting down in the forest there to the southwest.
Yeah.
Maybe in habitat terms. I don't know.
Well,
So
you could search that hex, though, couldn't you?
Yeah.
'Cause then you'd be on the edge of that anyway.
The one by the woods.
Yes, and then we can, if we make camp to the west of that, we can hunt in the forest during the day, and then you guys can the rest of the party then can do your searching. led by Leo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, we should, when we know that we've 8 days to get back, so we know that when we get to 8 days worth of food, we just need to leave. I think we're okay.
Okay, so if you guys are planning on searching one of the sort of larger, like 6 mile subhexes, can one of you please move your player party token to like the center of the large hex you want to search? Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, so as I say, it's going to take 8 days, and obviously you've already spent sort of like 8 days travelling here, so just give me a moment.
I think we'll try and rig up a fairly robust shelter for this little stay. Something that's a little bit better than our usual.
We might be able to find a suitable cave or something.
Okay, so we're now on the 3rd day of a shadow chase, the 1st month of the Valconan winter. So the weather is predictably getting pretty damn harsh. And also, a couple of days ago, you passed the payment day for your hirelings. So you have Cotton Nickel, who's costing you 10 gold pieces. Your 6 defenders costing you 12 gold pieces. And you have Quailak, who's costing you 1,500 pieces. So, assuming you're paying them all, you will need to deduct 1,522 gold pieces from your group fund.
Okay, which is a problem because we don't have it.
Okay, so it then becomes okay. Because obviously, I'm assuming what money you did want to leave people, you've sort of left behind. I'm not going to say, oh, you've not left it. So, basically, who do you want to pay?
Well, really, it's Quailak is the only one that we can't afford to pay, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Now, so I guess ultimately he can't be paid, right? That's the long and the short of it, really.
But we'd have had to leave in the money that we had and said, if we're not back in time, this is the last of what we got.
We have enough to pay him for half. We have enough to pay him for half a month. So if it was okay to pay him 750 for the first 2 weeks of the month, we might be back with enough to.
Okay, yeah. So deduct your money, and I've made a note that you've paid him for half of the month.
Okay.
Obviously, like you say, if you can get back in time and pay him the rest, that's all grand.
Okay, so that's 700.
Okay, so on the first day, you said that both Brock and yourself, Hop, were going to hunt, so you can make your hunting rolls.
Mine's 5 and 6, so I got 3.
Okay, so yeah, you're fine. Okay, so we're just waiting to see what Harp rolls.
2, which is a success.
Okay, so you two do a spot of hunting, and you have gained enough meat to cover 4 rations.
Okay.
Because, to be honest, I mean, you're lucky they've got you two here, because it's like a few sort of scrawny mountain goats and maybe the odd sort of sheep here. I mean, you're high up in the mountains. It's only due to the fact that you've started moving more towards the slightly forested area that means you get much hunting at all. And presumably, whilst that's going on, both Weimar and Leopold are hunting for Mithril. Is that correct? Okay.
It sure is.
So, what I'm
Need
going
to find some pretty soon, or we'll be bankrupt.
Okay, so what I'd like you to do is either Weimar or Leopold, can you move your player party token to like the bit of this hex that you're starting your search in?
Where do we want to start, Weimar? Do you reckon?
Where did we come from? Which angle? I guess here.
I think we came from
North
further up and we
east.
backtracked. Yeah.
Yeah, you would have sort of come
yeah.
in sort of like from this direction.
Okay. I don't know. Let's start. Why not here somewhere? So
Yeah.
research.
Yeah.
So I'll put that there.
Sorry, I went to move it as well.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, no problems. So you start off searching in that area. Now, as you're sort of searching around, obviously your companions are off hunting, you notice that when you're sort of like looking in this area, there's a strange sort of effect seems to take place. As both you and Leopold are searching this area, you note that it's very disorientating, and when you look at an object in this area, it appears to be closer than it actually is. So there's a few times where you like stumble and fall over because you're like, oh, I'll avoid that rock that I'm just about to step on. Then when you sort of move your foot, it's not actually there. The rock is like several feet away, but it looked closer than it is. Like there's some sort of strange visual distortion going on.
Is this anything I've encountered before?
It's maybe some sort of magic, but you're not really a magic man.
Okay. So magic, huh?
And as you're sort of exploring, you're sort of slowly, by sort of trial and error, you're able to map out the sort of rough area of it, which I will now reveal on the map.
That's a pretty big area.
Indeed, and whenever anyone enters this area, as I say, there's this strange sort of visual, almost like illusionary effect on your senses, and it makes objects appear to be like much closer than they actually are. So it's, once you've sort of been in there a while, you sort of get used to it, and you're sort of like tapping around with your weapons, like making sure by like feel of like where your footing is. But the first sort of couple of times you wander into the area, it's very difficult because, like I say, you're stumbling over your footing because you're expecting the terrain to be different, whereas that terrain's actually like 50 feet ahead of you. It's very disorientating and makes you very dizzy, and almost like you have like a feeling of vertigo the first couple of times you move into it. But gradually, using like say like sticks and your weapons to like tap your way around, you have to move a bit more slowly in that area, but you don't come to any significant harm, and you're sort of slowly getting used to it.
Do we see any signs of habitation that might sort of give us a clue as to if this is like a natural phenomenon or some kind of sorcery?
Okay, well, as you're sort of searching around this area, you come across what appears to be, as you're sort of like peering over like a sort of rocky outcropping, you come across what appears to be like almost like the size of like a small hamlet, but instead of like wood stone buildings, the buildings appear to be made out of like the bones of like mammoths and things like that, with like hide stretched over them. And as you're looking around, you see like a number of these sort of like primitive looking like Neanderthal like people sort of like moving around in this presumably their village. They're wearing just like simple furs. They're sort of like they're quite hirsute. They've got sloping forehead, brows. Some of them are carrying clubs.
Are they pretty similar to the folk that we met in that cave before? Yeah. Okay. Huh. I sort of nudge Weimar and be like, they look like them folk we encountered before.
So at least we know that we can make ourselves understood with food. So
Yeah, I mean, they like that dagger that I gave them, and they were not unduly hostile. So
you don't hear anything that sounds like sort of the common tongue of man amongst them. You hear like a lot of grunting and exchange? You think they probably communicate by like grunting and like sort of gestures and body language?
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest challenge, communicating with them to get our message across. I wonder if they have created this magic to disguise their whereabouts, or there's some sort of weird coincidence that they happen to be here. It seems that's strange.
Don't really know. We'd have to ask someone else. Maybe the sage that we've paid for when we get back. I don't know. This is very strange. Should we look somewhere else, perhaps?
Yeah, I feel like we don't want to talk. I don't think we want to infringe too much on their territory. Or we could.
At this point, roll me a d6, Leopold, to see whether they have spotted you.
A tree.
They don't appear to have.
Yeah, I think we'll back on up. We'll perhaps discuss this with a group when we reconvene over dinner and discuss the day's events. But in the meantime, perhaps we should carry on our prospecting endeavours. We'll make a mental note of where this strange field of disorientating sorcery is.
And indeed you do. And you continue your exploring. You've just met up with the... I said we're condensing this a bit because, like I say, it's like 8 days to search this X, but we're sort of scrunching it down a bit. So you've met up again with Harp and Brock, who've been out hunting on the sort of forest edge, and you're just about to continue your prospecting when all of a sudden you hear like this noise nearby, and before you have chance to react, a huge column of fire erupts from the ground, springing high into the sky, and in the midst of that fire is a huge, shadowy, demonic looking face that appears dark as the night, and as it peers down at you, this fire illuminating it almost like a shadow against the flames, a loud voice booms out and says, "Who dares trespass on the territory of Talibaran the Terrible? Speak now if you value your souls."
Don't tell him, Harp.
Harp, your name will go on the list. At which point the face continues and it says, "You will meet the most deadly..." And then it just stops dead like mid-sentence, and in a slightly less demonic sounding voice goes, "Is that a magical hammer and a sword that you're carrying?"
Who's asking?
Well, me, obviously.
Yes, well, I carry the what's it called? Misery's End. And I'm not frightened to admit it. I'm Leopold Stavish.
At which point the face sort of like tilts around, moving around the column of flame to look at Weimar, and it's like, "And the sword?"
What of it?
Is it a magical sword?
I will think with my hand on the pommel. Can you see what this presence is?
Okay, for a few moments, like nothing happens. Then you and only you hear like laughter coming from the sun sword, as though it like thinks this is like the funniest thing in the world, and it just basically goes, "It's not real." At which point, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that some might say that it is mythical, lost for thousands of years, recovered by the just.
The eyebrows of the demonic face raise, and it's like, oh. At which point, just like instantly, the column of flame, the face just like disappear, and from behind a large rock, a grey-bearded old man wearing like a pointed hat and robes comes walking out from behind this rock. And as he does so, you see he's like holding like what looks like parchment in his hand, but as he walks out, like the parchment just like crumbles to dust and like blows away on the wind. And he just goes, "Oh well, that was a waste of a damn good scroll. Never mind." And he sort of like he like hobbles over towards you, like he's obviously not too steady on his feet, and he holds out the hands and he says, "I'm Talbaran."
Pleased to meet you, Talbaran. Like I say, Leopold Stavish, and I wouldn't say that was a waste. I thought that was a fairly good show.
He's like, "Oh, do you really think so? Well, thank you very much." He says, "Well, yes, I apologise for the theatrics, but I've been living here for a while, and I heard rumours that there were going to be people tramping all over the mountain and mining it and stuff like that, and I came to live in these mountains so that people would leave me the hell alone. Last thing I want is a load of people swinging pickaxes and prospecting on these mountains. And well, I don't want to actually do any harm to anyone, so I thought, a little bit of the old Shazam might scare them off without need to resort to violence."
Yes, well, certainly more easily scared would probably have been well on their way. But we're adventurers more than prospectors, so we've seen a few things, haven't we, Weimar? We're not so fast.
We've been through a considerable amount of danger, but I will grant you that there's been very few pillars of fire in our way. And,
that's true enough.
Well, it's a. I mean, I thank you for the praise, young Master Dwarf, but it's a fairly simple illusion. I mean, no real substance to it. If you'd have got closer, you'd have noticed that the fire didn't give out any heat, etc. But well, it suffices for, like you say, less sturdy folk. And well, I'm here doing a bit of my own investigating, nothing to do with mining or anything as crude as that, but I might be hampered by these people trying to mine their way through the mountains, and I just want to be left alone to get on with my research. But if the eightfold rule of magic teaches us anything, it's that the first strike is not with the hand, but with the mind. And he takes out the pipe and he's like... You see him like he just touches his finger to the end of the pipe and it just like lights. And he's like...
But it's most fortuitous that we've run into you, actually. This matter that you're looking into, it doesn't have anything to do with strange auras or irregular fields of...
Oh, you've experienced it as well then, have you? He says, well, technically what I'm here researching isn't exactly that, but that's a side effect of what I'm researching. Tell me, young Master Dwarf, what do you know about lines of power?
Well, Not so much. Not so much. The lines of power that I know more about the bloodlines of the ancestors and our royalty. But I suspect that that's probably not what you're referring to in this instance.
This like weird old hermit Talbaran seems to be like warming up and getting into his flow, because you've basically gone, please tell me about your favourite subject.
Yes, basically.
And
Yeah.
he points into the distance and he says, you see that mountain over there?
Yep.
He says, well, to put it in layman's terms, there are lines of power that run across the world. They tend to follow certain natural formations and landscapes and stuff like that. And those who know how, they can tap into that power to increase their workings and other such like things. I won't go into too much detail. But I came here to study those lines of power, and I believe when you tend to get a couple of lines crossing, as is happening here in the mountains, you tend to get a certain amount of leakage, for want of a better word, and when that sort of energy leaks into the area, it can create all manner of strange effects, like the visual distortion that you're talking about.
I see. What about the folk? Have you encountered the folk that live in that area?
It says, oh, the primitives, you mean?
Well, yeah, I suppose you could put it like that.
He says, yes, I've seen them, but I normally give them a little bit of a wide berth, and they seem happy to do likewise to me. And like I say, I came here to get away from people and find a way to continue my studies. So I've generally left them alone. Like I say, they seem happy to do the same for me. I mean, I've come across a few of them while they've been hunting, but they seem to be a fairly superstitious lot. It's fairly easy to scare them away if I need to. And he sort of waves his hand dramatically.
Do you think they're the folk that have moved off of the glacier, that have maybe been here all along, or?
He says, I suppose it's possible. I mean, I'm no genealogist, but they appear a good deal more primitive than like the Ice Walker tribes, and even compared to the strange, twisted folk of Leng, they seem to be. I suppose it's possible they could have regressed somewhat in isolation, but I'd have to make a deeper study of it, and I don't really have time for that at the moment. But you may have something, young Master Dwarf. Anyway, so tell me, what brings you to these mountains?
Well, you'll probably be a little bit put out to know that we're here prospecting. We're settlers to the south of here, and we need to raise funds. So we're here on the rumour of Mithril. And obviously, as you can see, I'm a dwarf. And, well, I feel like I'm duty bound.
He says,
It's a matter of honour, really.
He says, well, I don't know a lot about your people, the Kalna, but I suppose if you're staying in this area to the south, I mean, normally, like I say, my sort of research is far to the northeast of here, so I don't see you'll be bothering me overly much. And well, I live in a small hut in the range of hills just to the north of the mountains. It's quite by chance I was. In fact, it was due to the visual distortion that I actually spotted you. I'm sure you've worked out it makes things look nearer than they are. Well, as I was wandering near the edges of it, to me, from my point of view, it seemed as though I was stood right next to you. Obviously, I know what effect it has, so I was like, oh, I'll quickly hide behind this rock and do my thing, as it were. You really think my fire face was impressive?
Well, yeah, I mean, as Weimar says, it's not something you see every day, a big column of fire with a talking face. I've seen many folk impressed with a much lesser spectacle.
Oh, like I say, I can obviously see you're discerning people, and if you're staying in this area, I don't see that any harm will come to it for my research. Like I say, I'm in that mountain over there, so That's where the line of force is nearest to the surface and easiest to tap.
Have you got a secure hold there? Your dwelling is secure. We've seen a number of. Well, it was only a short while ago we come across a large betoothed tiger type creature.
Well, like I say, although my researchers are in the mountain, I actually live in a hut beyond these mountains in the hills. So I don't have a holding in the actual mountains, but
I see.
We've been using various abilities at my disposal. It's fairly easy for me to quickly get to the mountain and back. So, like most days, when I'm not involved in researches at home, I travel to the mountains. And like I say, normally I'm north of here, but I happen to be like ranging a bit further south, studying the strange visual effect, mapping it out and such, and happen to see your group.
Have you got any idea about this Mithril? Have you come across it? I mean, I know that's not really your line of work, but in your travels, you've clearly been here a while, and wonder if you might have picked up on any signs.
Well, I know there is some of it up to in the mountain where I'm doing my studies. If you're searching this area on the borders of the forest, there is a stream that runs from the mountains and runs down here. It's a couple of hours to the south of here. If you're going to find Mithril here, then you'll probably find traces of it there if it's washed downstream.
Indeed, I was not aware of this stream, and that would be a very good place for us to go panning for Mithril. I believe Weimar. That may be our next destination.
Certainly. We are not laden with a lot of detail of the area, so...
He says, well, I can't, much as it's been a pleasure to speak to you all, I can't stand around here all day. I've got research to do. And he takes out a scroll from his long billowing sleeves, unfurls it, and he reads something in a strange language of it. The scroll immediately turns to dust, and he just vanishes. However, a few minutes later, you hear this, even though you can't see him, you hear footsteps heading north.
And that was I thinking he'd teleported away. Quite an interesting chat. We'll have to perhaps drop in on him.
Okay.
He's going to be very surprised once the actual spelunking interests arrive.
Can't believe those guys are handing out permits.
And at this point, Leopold can ask you to roll me a d6.
Two.
Okay. As the frostworm moves.
Have we got a contingency plan for the frostworm?
We were going to feed it to the dwarf.
Ah.
Yeah, run faster than the dwarf, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, our best plan is probably serpentine.
Do you know, that might not be your best plan, as I'm the only one that seems to hit anything round.
You'll keep it occupied then.
Oh yeah, I'll keep it occupied. Yeah, I can definitely do that.
Okay, so you see the frostworm sort of flying to the south of you into the hills just shy of the glacier. It dips down below the hills out of your range of sight, and then just distantly you can hear the sound of snapping wood and crumbling stone and the roaring of the beast as it descends out of your vision. And then, amidst all of that, you hear the unmistakable sound of a black powder weapon being discharged.
Oof.
a few moments later, you see the great creature with a roar ascend once more into the sky, and as you look, you can just about make out what appears to be the tiny figure of perhaps a man, maybe a woman, you can't tell, clutched in one of its claws, a long billowing cloak, or perhaps robes, again you can't tell, sort of flapping around as the dragon ascends with its prize.
Not our mate, surely, not our old mate. It didn't look like the robes of the guy we just met, did it?
You couldn't tell at this distance.
No.
He was right next to us, wasn't he?
He went off though, didn't he?
Yeah, but
he stayed in the Mithril
like
area,
12.
right?
Yeah,
12 miles away, that
he
is.
stayed in the
right.
Mithril area, so you suspect it's not him.
So we've got a good idea of the size of this thing now, would you
Yeah.
say?
Yeah, it's huge.
So we need to bear in mind that we need to always try and keep somewhere where we can go to ground, or a cave or something that it wouldn't be able to get into.
Yeah, well, that ain't gonna happen, is it? We ain't gonna be able to do that. The sort of things like that are a little bit rare, aren't they?
Well, it's potentially worth looking for whilst.
Well, it's all right. You might find something in the mountains, but it's other than the mountains, I reckon, bit tricky.
Yeah. Well, we can try and stay under the trees.
Under the tree, yeah. Like you say, under the trees might be your best bet. If we had like a kind of if we made a natural type shelter and then camouflaged it to kind of conceal ourselves from the air.
But is there much tree cover in the actual mountains, though?
Well, no, there ain't going to be no tree cover.
There's virtually no tree cover in the mountains, but you are on the very edge where it starts running into a forest.
Yeah, because that's where you lot are hunting.
Yeah.
So perhaps a reasonable amount of time we're going to spend in and about the woods anyway, just doing day-to-day stuff and all that. Then I suppose what we could do, we could look around in the mountains so that we've got at least somewhere that we could have as a bit of a bolt hole or something if we was up that way. But I think the best we're going to be able to do is like when we see that thing is just get into cover and perhaps try and hide, and maybe if we've got a fire, we perhaps put out the fire. And we just got some sort of like a dragon protocol or a frostworm protocol that we all know what we got to do, and we get to doing it.
Yeah, I mean the size of the thing, you would hope you'd get a little bit of warning.
Oh yeah, it's definitely not going to be stealthing up on anybody.
Yeah. So, like you say, if we've got some sort of agreed plan to either split up in a certain area and hide, or if we've got points that we've found that potentially good for hiding. Yeah.
And as you're sort of reaching the end of your search on the 8th day, and you're sort of talking about this as you're moving around and you're still doing your search, you eventually, thanks to the aid of the strange hermit, you do locate this small mountain stream that flows down into the forest. And as you're sort of getting close to the bank, Leopold, as you glance across the water, you see a glimmering deep within it, as though of the brightest silver, or perhaps Mithril. And that is where we will end the session for today, guys. Thank you very much for playing. I hope you all enjoyed the session.
Yeah, it's very good, John. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
I especially like the ending where we met the wizard man. That was great because we haven't had a lot of wizards around.
Indeed, no. Okay, so obviously, guys, I'm happy to chat for a bit, and I'm gonna work out XP, and I'm gonna try that automatic give people XP dealio that I can apparently do.
Wait.
We'll see how that goes, but I've got to work it out first, obviously. So, but I'm going to end the stream here. So thanks to anyone who's watching this. I hope you guys enjoyed it, watching it as much as I enjoyed running it, and hopefully you guys enjoyed playing it.
Big shout out to Joe Richter, Hindsightless. I know he watches.
Indeed. And hopefully we will catch you on the next session in a couple of weeks' time. So until then, take care.